questions in this tool which are specific to implementing partner, and there are some questions which are only for field staff, which are applicable only for field staff. So in this tool, I think there should be segregation between field staff.
Like what? Can you give an example?
Yes. Question number 5. Do you work with partners to agree how we will raise complaints, feedback against each other?
Yeah.
So we have given this to the partner. Are we asking the field staff the same question?
Sorry?
This question,
Yeah.
and this
Yeah.
tool can be used for field staff, for
Yeah.
say the children,
Yeah.
and for implementing partners. And this question, can we ask this question to our field staff in the field?
You think you cannot? They
We
will not
already-
be aware.
We already know that. I mean, this is our field staff whom we are going to interview. So should we ask this question? And there are some more questions. Like in the next section, do we support partners in monitoring programs and setting up systems for them?
Yeah.
And then, in staff competencies, do our staff have the knowledge, skills, attitudes to meet? The second question, do our staff understand and abide by our code of conduct? For implementing partners, they have different codes. They are different. My suggestion or my understanding is that there are some questions which should be, I mean, either we make a section for implementing partners that this applies only to implementing partners, and this is for field staff. So some of the questions are not suited for both.
Okay. Point taken. Now, as you see, the layout is, this used to be a longer tool. Under each benchmark, we had at least 5 or 6 questions. But then this is a revised and shortened version of the tool, and we added a couple more things. The idea is really to get staff to reflect about their practice on the ground. But at the same time, under some of the benchmarks, we have put in things about how we support the partner to be more accountable, or how we ensure accountability between us and the partners. I can understand sometimes this might cause confusion, and also sometimes our field staff may not necessarily have access to this information. They may not know if our partner staff have a way of, say, expressing complaints, their complaints to us. But it's there. The reason why we put them in there is, again, to make the point that that triangular relationship is very important. There is a difference between, there's even a power difference in most cases between our field staff and partner field staff. Would you agree? Yeah. And it is important for our field staff to think about that power difference and to think about giving the partner staff the power and the freedom to criticize us, to complain to us. So our field staff actually need to know if there is a complaints mechanism in place for the partner to come to us. They may not know, but they do need to know. And same thing applies for our field staff supporting partner staff in M&E. Our field staff supporting our partners to perhaps, maybe not so much setting up a code of conduct. Sometimes our partners do not have their code of conduct. And then so when we sign the MOU agreement, we take a look at what's in place, what organizational capacity development needs do they need for us to be able to partner with them. There are some important issues like the code of conduct and safeguarding rules have to be there, or we have to help them develop them. So field staff will not be the ones helping develop the code of conduct, but our field staff need to model the implementation, or say model our code of conduct, and you know, support the partner in, say, if they're in the field together, if there's a safeguarding issue and the partner doesn't pick it up, they need to kind of raise these issues with them gently to say, well, can we be more careful about this, or this is actually how we like to see things done, or that sort of thing. Yeah?
Yeah, just looking through the tool, I'm thinking, well, we have this tool, how effective has it been within the organization, and not just for the field staff, but also head office staff? Why am I saying that? Because one, just in relation to the last proposals that we've done on the girls' education journey, I just picked the first column all the way to design, because when the problem analysis was being done, it was some international expert and local expert staff sitting in a room and brainstorming things. When it came to design, they are writing the stuff with the other consortium leaders. Of course, we argue that we work with children so we know what they want, but that's a lame argument.
Yeah.
And I think this tool needs to be more intensively, impacted and cascaded to start not only at the field, but at the head office. Because I've been to the field, we start from the head office, who are even leading sections. When staff on the field are insisting we need to go and visit schools before we do a proposal design, they're like, that's a waste of time, we already know what they want. Because they have preconceived ideas.
Yeah.
So even our own top senior management and advisors and senior advisors need to be very intense on this tool. Second, even staff on the field have been to places, for example, like Libya, where a staff was very good at consulting the children in a big circle of parents. But there was this one girl who kept on knowing all the answers that she would lift her hand all the time. And then at some point, this Save the Children staff embarrassed this kid and said, no, why is it always speaking? Sit down! You know, and I was so shocked because this was a child protection person. The other thing in South Sudan, we went to schools where the children had been involved all the way. So they would tick even the last bit of leave. But there was a big issue because they had reached a point where they would tick their checklist and realize the teacher is not in class for almost three days in a week, every week. And they got so agitated, they went to bed.
You mean they missed class?
The teacher was absent, 3 times a week. So in their tool, they could see half the time the teacher is absent. So they went to the education official with the checklist and complaining, the teacher is hardly there, we're not learning, and they got into so much trouble. So the question from the evaluators was, how much do we ensure that we are engaging children at the same time we are protecting
them as they need, when they need. Yeah, exactly.
So there are a lot of issues. It's a very good tool. It looks very good on paper, but when I take myself back to reality, I'm thinking there's still a lot of work.
Yeah. Well, thanks for raising those issues. Just to kind of respond to one of your points, this tool has been piloted just for a year, and it has been used primarily in the field office. It's not necessarily being used in head office unless
Which is wrong.
Yes.
Because people live here and they
how am I going to get this sort of reflection space into people's attention? I'm not sure, but yes, we do need some support in terms of how can we make space for that sort of thing. I forgot what I was going to say. So yeah, yes, I mean, this tool, any assessment tool, I think, is an opportunity for learning and sensitization and reflection. So when I was putting together these 3 different tools for accountability self-assessment based on the HAP baseline tool last year, I thought some people will think, oh, this is too much, it's too many different bits and pieces for different audiences. But then when we actually did it, we thought it's actually a tool for orienting staff to what we understand from accountability. So instead of lecturing them about it, give them this, ask them these questions, and hopefully that will give them a sense of, oh, so accountability is about sharing information, is about, participation across the program cycle and so forth. So any reactions and feedback to the extent to which we can do that better, we can help people reflect on these issues and all the complexities that come with it that Emily was raising just now. If if we open that space for a discussion in the country office, that's great. And that's what tool is meant to be doing. And also it's a planning tool. So after you reflect on what's happening, then you think about, all right, you know, there are things that we can do better, and what could those be? Yeah,
Please.
Gloria.
I wanted to check at what level, or when you analyze, what is it that we use to conclude? What I'm asking is, we use this in 2 programs, and in one program, most of the things were, I would say, not in place. And it was because the officers didn't know.
Right.
But these things were being done. And with another
Things
program,
weren't in place, or the people didn't know?
the people didn't know.
Didn't know, but they were in place.
They were in place.
Okay.
But because they didn't know, they would think that it's not in place. But with another program, because they knew it was in place. So in analyzing the 2 sets of data now was quite difficult. And I ended up making conclusion of what I know is in place and not necessarily what the other colleagues have
Right.
done. So
There are questions, I mean, I don't know, I have to look at the questions once again. But I think the questions in this tool are largely about practice. Whereas tool 1 that we looked at yesterday were about policies in place. So if you give this tool to a practitioner, to a field officer, it's not about having things in place, it's about how they do things. So if they don't know, that probably means they're not practicing it. Yeah? Am I right?
Practice for the field officer themselves, because they're like, question 5, do we work with partners to see how they will raise complaints?
Yeah, okay, that one is, yeah.
This is something that a field officer doesn't do, but it's done from a high level within the organization, where we have the contacts in place.
But they need to know, that's what I'm saying. That's the point Hassan made. They need to know that our partners can also raise issues against us.
So if the officers do not know, and they say that we do not work with partners, what implications does that have to our conclusion?
Right. I mean, first of all, that we just say, you know, yes, there is a mechanism in place, and the field staff need to know that and need to communicate about that. So that would be your action point, yeah?
Okay.
Something like this. That's what I would say, yeah?
I was just thinking about what Gloria was saying, because I read it initially and I was thinking, wow, half the field staff that I ever worked with wouldn't be able to answer any of these. But I was thinking, well, that's the benefit of it. You can use it at an individual level to do a gap analysis for capacity building. So if you're giving out every single field staff, then you can find out who knows what and then do a targeted training. Or if you do it to a group of staff, you can kind of have a more participatory way of getting them to know what they need to know. So it's not necessarily a bad thing if they don't know and they should know. You can use it to kind of come up with future activities.
Okay, yeah, no, it's interesting you say half the staff would not be able to respond. We want them to be able to kind of reflect on their practice and identify
I
gaps.
think it also depends on which organization, because in Save the Children, most staff that know about child participation in the field, because that's one of the generic things that happen
Yeah.
in the field.
My experience is very remote and very low capacity, so it's
Yeah,
probably
yeah.
not typical.
Yeah, but no, that's Nasir, did you have a point?
Yeah, I'm thinking about the use of this tool. That how, like for example, we have 40 programs or 20 programs in the country office. If we are using this tool in those programs, then the second step will be to how to analyze this data. Because the questions are largely, do you have, do you know, and then the responses are that what we do now, like what they do now. So it is a detailed response.
Yeah.
because every question is a combination, is a compound question. Because if we see, then it says that do we regularly and adequately inform children about organization and programs? And then second question is, and what behavior to expect of our staff? So it's a two questions in one question. So if, for example, if we are informing them, and then the behavior and what behavior to expect of our staff. If this question is lacking, but the first question is like
It's there. So
yeah.
no, I get your
Yeah.
point. No, it's not. It's in
Yeah.
that sense, it's a terrible
Yeah.
survey tool. It's,
Yeah.
if you
Yeah.
look at it as a survey tool,
Yeah.
it's very. First of all, the questions. In order to cut them down, we combined everything together.
Yeah.
So it's more of a reflection tool,
Yeah.
as you said.
So my suggestion is that, yeah, like as you said, that this is also a planning tool. So action needed, and then if we make it like the deadline and the responsible person for that also after the action needed. So then it will be a comprehensive tool. And then second comment is that
Sorry, I didn't get that. After action needed, what do you want to add?
deadline and
Timeline.
responsible,
and
yeah,
responsible,
timeline.
yeah. Yeah, go ahead.
And second comment is that, like in the question number 3, what happens if a person makes an allegation against a staff member of sexual abuse of a child or an adult? The second question in this is how would this be investigated?
Yeah.
Yeah. So we are talking about the sexual abuse in some countries, like in our part of the financial mismanagement is the biggest issue.
Right.
Yeah. So if, for example, we can aid the financial mismanagement in this question,
Yeah.
to more focus on that.
Yeah.
And
Nice. Okay.
yeah, and the third comment is that, as Hassan said, that there are questions. All of the questions are related to the partners. Some of the questions are also related to us, because there, if we see to the partnerships, we have consortium partners. And then consortium partners also have their implementing partners. We also have implementing partners.
Yeah.
So normally, for example, if CARE International is our consortium partner, or Aga Khan Foundation, so they have their own policies and code of conduct. Normally, they don't accept our policies
Yeah.
as a consortium partner. So what to do in that case?
Yeah.
And-
Okay. So we
yeah.
need to change how we phrase that.
Yeah,
It's not our, but their or a code of conduct.
yeah.
You know, whatever's in place. Sometimes
Yeah.
they adopt ours.
Yeah.
Sometimes, as you said, they
Yeah,
have their
yeah.
We can say as agreed in the partnership agreement.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. That's
And-
well taken. Yeah. They're all very good points. So you're saying partnerships come in all forms and sizes, and sometimes partners are bigger than us and they have more capacity and funding than us. So then the whole power balance shifts, and also, accountability in that relationship looks a lot different than a tiny small partner that really depends on us for many things, for funding and capacity building and setting up their systems, etc. These are all very good points, and I think what we need to, this is, let me put it this way, would a tool that is a bit more, this is a very qualitative tool, and as you said, the questions are open-ended and they're compound, they're kind of stuck together. If we separated all those questions out and made them maybe close-ended questions and put in some sort of either a RAG status or scoring system that will make it a bit easier for us to analyze across the board? Would that be a bit more helpful?
Yeah, but it's the
Zoe, you can.
I was just going to say, before you said that, I was going to say that I thought that's the benefit of this tool, that people aren't driven to say, okay, well, it would look better if we had 70%, so let's just push this one way or another. So I think that the fact that it gets qualitative data is really useful, but then I don't have to analyse 20 of them. So.
Yeah, sometimes for a big country office, you know, when we said if you want to put together your accountability framework, try to, you know, try to look at how many field staff you have, including field partner staff, and try to reach out to about 20% of them. That's a lot for some country offices.
Yeah. But I was also just going to say that the participation section's completely different. In that it asks specific questions, and there's just a box next to it, and I wasn't really sure I meant to tick it if it does happen, or and there's no space for comments or any actions. So I think perhaps it would be better to align.
So the participation bit of this tool was exactly the same as the other benchmarks. Participation under, we had a few questions underneath. And then basically we decided to change to, when we're talking about participation, what are we looking at? We're looking at two things. Participation across the program cycle, so the scope of participation, and also the quality of participation. So that's what we want to assess, And the questions we had in there were again compounding things, especially when it comes to quality. You have to ask about the 9 standards, you choose a few of them. What if one's in place and the others are in place? So we thought, if this is largely about getting people oriented and kind of reflect on what this is about, I actually really like this table. I don't know what you think, but replicating it on a wall also gives you a nice picture and a kind of place to have a discussion from. So instead of putting a question here, how well do we allow or facilitate children to participate across the program cycle? I think it's much nicer to do that sort of voting exercise with our own staff or partners. So I'm tempted to kind of keep this. With this one, the second section looks at the quality of participation. It takes the 9 participation quality standards and it tries to ask questions to give people a sense of what this quality standard is about. And you're meant to tick it. Again, it's a discussion tool, but there is no planning attached to it, and I realize that. So what needs to be done? So what are we doing now bit is this checklist, but the planning bit is not there. So this is far from perfect, far from easy to analyze, I think. But when you, hopefully it's okay just to, again, generate reflection and get people to understand what we are talking about when we talk about accountability. So I don't know if you want to have a discussion quickly on kind of what came up here. I'm surprised to see, say, less collaborative on the adult side. I was thinking maybe we would see a bit more, especially from our field guys. Don't you think? Like from NASA, I thought you were saying you did all this participatory M&E, participatory evaluation exercises.
Yeah.
They don't reflect?
Yeah. Because that was in the past.
That was in the past?
Yeah.
No. Okay.
And the current situation is this.
Yeah.
In Afghanistan.
Yeah. Okay.
So
what is the desired status? Because the last 2 columns are completely empty.
Yeah.
I can imagine the last 2 columns are the most important.
Not necessarily. I thank you for asking that. So you will talk about participation with Hannah tomorrow all day. And you will talk about the scope of participation and quality of participation. Those are the two things that we focus on. And for the scope of participation, the message she will tell you is this. Participation takes different forms. And it used to be that in the sector, there was a hierarchy between these different forms, that led by community was deemed as better than consultation or collaboration, that we should always aim for having things led by the community. Now that thinking has changed a little bit. That hierarchy is not there anymore. The participation experts are telling us that it takes different forms. It can be in the form of consultation. It can be collaboration with equal power. So again, it comes to power. She'll show you these what is it called? The wheel, the seesaw things. So, you know, when we consult them, we're saying, okay, we'll listen to you a little bit, but we might still do what we want. Yeah.
I mean, experts are all.
Yeah, so we have the upper hand on this, yeah? In collaborative, we are coming to equal, sort of, you know, hopefully. And in led by the community has the upper hand. We kind of have them lead the process, design it and lead it and take the decisions. And we are saying that all these forms of participation are valuable, and that in our programs, they will take place across the program cycle. It's good to, you know, we will be consulting at some point, we'll take decisions at some point, and it's also obviously very good if the situation allows, if there are no risks, if we can mitigate risks to children especially, to have children, to encourage them, to facilitate children leading certain aspects of the program. So we will go back and forth across the program cycle in these different forms of participation, and that's fine. What's important is not to be on that first column, or not to be solely on that consultation column. That we do give people a bit more power than we hold, yeah? So that's kind of where we are, and that's the recommendation. So thank you for that. Any other thoughts? Yeah?
Like in the design, normally, the NGO workers, when they go to the field, they normally, one is the documented procedure of community mobilization, community participation. But in reality, what we have seen is that they go to their friends and linkages in the community, and then they involve them in the program design and consult them. People normally, like, you know, when we do evaluations, normally people complain about those, the people who are involved are not like selected by the proper procedure. And then they say that, yeah, this is not a community-based program, it's just a selected for relatives and friends.
Accountability in the selection.
Yeah, yeah. So, I was thinking that this tool, if anything can be added to this, that in the design, how they involve the community.
Yeah.
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 Kind of ask them, push them to think a bit more about that bit. Yeah. That's especially, I mean, this is not in any way a surprising picture, especially when it comes
So
to
that's
design.
why, you know, then community collaboration is less.
Yeah.
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 There's a different question what Nasir is saying. We discussed that how we are going to analyze the findings from this tool and the tool that we discussed yesterday. There are two questions. One is there a specified format? Like, I believe that these three tools will lead to accountability framework.
Yeah, there is.
Do we have a particular format in what should be included in that accountability template or something.
Mhm.
And second, like we discussed so many things, like how we are going to analyze all this information, because it is mostly qualitative.
Qualitative, yeah.
Yeah. Is there any guideline or something?
Mhm. Yes, there is a format, there is a template, and I will share that with you. I was thinking maybe Friday, but I might do it early. We just have to look at it and discuss all along maybe. And as I said, you know, these tools aren't perfect, and I don't want to kind of push you to use them, but at the moment we don't necessarily have an alternative. So it's for us to really make a decision, and I'll take your recommendations on board, and I'll work in the next couple of months on revising a better tool. In the meantime, you might want to use it as it is, just to, you know, get the reflection started within your team. And once we look at the template that brings the information from the tools together, we can think about how that's worked. And Gloria, because you've done that, have you actually analyzed everything into a template, into the framework, accountability framework? I think you used the tool to make your plan for 2013.
Yes.
So still Gloria will be able to say a few things about how that worked and whether it was easy or not. So sorry not to have a bit more kind of clarity and something better for you, but this is where we are at the moment. Have you seen from other organizations or used tools that have worked better for you? Let me put it that way.
I have two tools of accountability in humanitarian sectors.
Okay.
I will share with you.
Okay.
Yeah.
Where are they from? Anyway, you can, yeah.
Someone from UK shared with me. I don't remember.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
There is-
also within the education minimum standards, there is a community participation section involved, which brings out a lot of these issues actually. Yeah.
That's good. Yeah, that's excellent.
Especially children and partners and law.
Okay. So bear with me. We'll continue with the assessment tools. But before that, I want to recognize Mark joining us. Mark, I'm sorry, I just wanted to finish the session. Do you want to say who you are and where you work and what you're interested in?
I work in the education team, and I have a bit of background in children's participation. I wanted to learn more about the accountability process and mechanisms, and I've been involved. Well, I am helping to lead one that's actually about to be rolled out in Kenya. So the learning from me will be around how to operationalise this relationship between these core practices within safety.
Which program is that?
Which program in Kenya is
Yeah.
the transfers program,
Okay.
and how to sort of mediate or communicate these tools into a specific country context, and then obviously down to the community implementation level over the next few months.
That's great. Okay, Haji is joining us from Kenya. He's the M&E officer? Yeah. So perhaps you can connect.
Yeah, definitely.
And also Jessamine is involved in designing a cash transfer program.
Yeah,
That isn't
Yeah, as in mine.
They're all connected. Okay, excellent. So yes, as I was saying, welcome. Thank you for joining us. Bear with us for another session on looking at more assessment tools, and the rest of the day is going to be about looking at complaints mechanisms. So what we're going to look at is a tool called Listen First. Have you heard of that before? So this is a tool that has been developed 2007, I think, by Mango and Concern, and it was the first attempt to really ask communities about what they think about our accountability. So it's their assessment of our accountability. I never get colds. I'm sorry. So we'll look at that. And if you were doing this training in Zimbabwe as we were planning to be, what we do is we take you out to actually facilitate the assessment with groups of adults and children, men and women and children. We do 3 sessions. But because we don't have that opportunity here, what we're going to do is you're going to...
It's a fire alarm.
Fire alarm.
It's test fire alarm.
Yeah.
It's a test. I want you to kind of participate in it so that you know how it works. It should go fairly quickly and hopefully easy. So that's what we will do next. And then afterwards, we'll start complaints handling. We'll discuss a little bit about the experience in the room, how exposed you have been, how involved you have been to date in complaints handling. I'll show you the key tools. As I've been talking about, SCI has now a standard operating procedure on complaints handling, which has just been written and been rolled out this year, so I'll introduce those tools to you. And we'll look at examples, and we'll finish the day with an exercise on looking at, you know, the particular programs you are or you will be involved in, and thinking through what a mechanism might look like for that particular program. Is that all right? Okay. So have you heard about the Listening Project then? Let me ask that. Listening Project is one of my favorite projects done by one of my favorite organizations in the whole world. It's, have you heard of Mary Anderson? You may have heard of Mary Anderson if you have studied peace and conflict studies and if you've heard of Do No Harm. So Mary Anderson is the person who tokened the Do No Harm and who started a lot of the important conversations in the sector about accountability. She also helped set up this organization called CDA, based in the US, Collaborative for Development Action. CDA started a project called the Listening Project in, I think, 2006 or something like that. It has been going on to date. It is the most comprehensive effort done to date to give voice to the recipients of international aid, both humanitarian and development. They have been doing about 20 listening exercises in 20-some countries. They have talked to about 6,000 plus people and asked them, so what do you think about these NGOs? They've also talked to organization staff, both big NGOs and local NGOs. And they've brought all of that information under, the Listening Project. And they've just come out with their book that culminates, basically that kind of summarizes the findings of that research. It's called Time to Listen, Hearing People on the Receiving End of International Aid. It's an excellent book, and what we're going to do is we'll buy copies of it and send it to you in the next couple of months. But before we start this assessment tool on listening to communities, I just wanted to bring the results of this research, kind of to get us in the mood, in a way, for what do people really think of NGOs. So people want us to slow down and communicate more effectively with them. They want greater focus on long-term impact. They want more emphasis on building relationships. They want more ownership and active role in their own development. They want to discuss together, decide together, and work together. They want us to truly use and build local capacity. They don't want briefcase NGOs, which is basically lots of small organizations coming out in the past few years with the aim for making money, basically, even though they're non-profit. Intermediaries with no local constituency who keep taking away some part of the project money, and then, you know, what's left for the community is very little. And they have a very nice formula for what constitutes waste. They say, if you come to us with prepackaged programs and work with lots and lots of intermediary organizations, if you do not consult and if you're unable to adapt, if you're not flexible, that's going to lead to a lot of waste. That's kind of their formula for waste. Let's see if I have anything else on this. No. So that's some of the findings of the listening project. And what we want to do now is go into our assessment exercise. So I would like you to go into groups of men and women, if you would. And we need to agree together on, say, what sort of project are we implementing in your community? Let's agree on a scenario project on which you will do the assessment. It will be imaginary, it will be a little bit difficult, but I'm not sure how else to do it. So,
can we not select one of the projects from?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. So, cash transfers. So a community in which we've been doing cash transfers. What do you think? Is that all right? Is that going to work?
Community would not have any.
Huh?
Okay, it's all right.
It's how many people are interested or have experience with cash transfer programs in this room? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Wow, so it is quite a majority. So let's go for a cash transfer. Can you say more about this program? So how long has it been running? Who is receiving the cash? What's the cash meant to be for? Yes. So? Where are we?
Yeah, nice.
Which country are we?
From one where they've actually done the process.
Are you asking us to respond now?
Just any of the people who may
Yeah,
raise
yeah,
their
no,
hand, if they
kind
can
of
think of a
figure
specific
out-
cash transfer program that's actually been implemented,
Yeah.
that they could describe briefly, so we could use that as a model or as a product, as our project. Is that right?
Okay, I will give you an example of some cash transfer that we had sometime in 2010. It was effort-based cash transfer, and it was targeting the low-income groups, and had a partnership with the local authority, the local municipalities, whereby the able-bodied beneficiaries would do public works program, and at the end of the month they'll get the $20 payment using the local banking, mobile banking system. And in addition to that, they had internal savings and lendings, where from the cash transfer, part of the money would go towards them starting income generating activities, so that on a monthly basis or on a weekly basis, small groups would meet and they lend money to each other. They will return it after some time at an interest. So the households with labor constrained members just got the $20 without engaging in public works or doing the internal lending and savings.
Where was that program? Where was it?
Zimbabwe,
Zimbabwe. And recently or long ago?
2009, 2010.
Has it been evaluated? And what are the findings?
It was a short.
Right, thanks for that. I mean, you're just going to have to pretend and respond to questions some sort of reasoning, because you will need to be scoring. But what I handed out is kind of the facilitator's guide to running this session. For Listen First project, there's basically 6 questions. At the back, if you turn, the Listen First assessment asks 6 questions. And it works with a scoring system. So in addition to scoring 6 questions, of course, there are other questions around each question. So we start with, after a round of introductions and thanking people and explaining the purpose of this particular exercise, we start with the question around transparency. Yeah? So I would come in and say, for example, do you know, well, can we have the women kind of sitting on one side and women sitting on one side of the room, please? Let's do that.
We are close. We are on one side.
Yeah.
Emily, you can take my seat. Women on one side, yeah.
Just placing the camera.
So hi everybody, thank you so much for having us join you today and taking the time to spend some time with us. During this session, we will be asking you about your experience, your involvement in the project, and get your feedback about the way our organization is working in your community. And the feedback will be used wherever possible to make things, to improve the quality of our work. We want to start with a discussion on how well we have been sharing information with you in this community in the cash transfer project. Of course, before you go into that, you might want to talk about, the project a little bit. Do you know about this project? What do you know, or something like that. But I just go, for the time's sake, I just go into the questions, okay? So, do you know who the main person assigned to you in this community is from the NGO? Who is the main person? You can just think of the name or something. Do you know how to contact the NGO? What do you need to do? How can you get in touch with us? That's going to be interesting. Yes?
Come to the village.
Huh?
The representative come to the village.
How often do they come?
Yeah, and then they stay in the village leader house. They discuss there, then they go back.
So they don't talk to you very much. You don't see them very much.
No, we see them in the car.
You see them in the car? Oh, okay. Okay. Have you ever talked to this person? Do you know their name?
They are big people. How can we talk to them?
Oh, okay. Okay. How about you, ladies? Is there someone from the organization who comes and talks to you? Do you know if you can go to them to ask for information?
Yeah, I want to bring information to us.
Sorry?
Yeah, the one who, she's the one who brings information to
Okay.
us. So we
Okay.
can discuss after that.
Okay. So, do you know what should be, well, let's say the children is trying to do in your community? What is the objectives of the project? Do you know?
To stop us being poor.
To stop us being poor, yeah, okay. And do you know if the organization works in other sorts of projects as well?
No.
The other objectives of the organization? What sorts of projects they work on? Do they have projects in the neighboring villages, or is this the first time your Save the Children has come into your village?
They're cleaning river, I think. Yeah, in another I have heard that they are giving money to clean the river. Yeah, in another village. Yeah.
And do you know, for this particular project, the cash transfer program, how long is the project going to last? Yeah? And how much is the project budget? How much money is available in this project from Save the Children for your community? You don't know. Okay. So you just take notes on this discussion, and then you go into the first scoring thing. So now what I would like you to do is have a discussion on this question. Okay. So each group gets a scoring sheet like this. And do we give blue to the girls?
Yeah.
Yeah. And 20 stickers. Red for the men. So, our question to you is, how easy is it for you to find out key information about the project and about our organization? And key information includes how to contact our staff. If you wanted to share some feedback, for example, how you could share that. If you wanted to know the timeline and your entitlements in the project objectives, the budget, and information like that. How would you do that? How easy do you think it is for you personally to do that? And also, we want you to think about the other people in the community who are not here today, who are benefiting from this program. So think about yourself, but also think about the experience of the other community members in terms of how easy is it for them and for you to find out key information. What we would like you to do is use those 20 stickers to kind of vote across low, medium, high, and very high.
Low, medium.
Sorry? It's very difficult for us to find information, and it's very easy. This is very difficult and very easy to find out key information for us. So we would like you to spread the 20 stickers across in a way that you think represents your experience and the experience of the other community members in the community in terms of finding out information about the project and the organization. Is that clear?
Yes.
I'll give it a try. Come on, we don't have a lot of time.
That's an example of where it is about like programs, it's not concrete. Yes.
Yeah, so,
This is just sort of scenario.
yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Just to show you what you end up with at the end of the exercise. You count men and women, so males, 5 females, and so forth, and try to see a pattern. It's very, obvious here. Most people haven't been involved, largely consulted. And then what you do is you ask for examples. So for those of you who have voted, for example, that the design process has been collaborative, can you tell me about that? How was that? How did that work? What did you feel, you were involved in? There was somebody who, a lady who was really leading the problem analysis process. So who is this and how was that? What was that like? And this is a nice, can be a nice story that you pick up from that community, actually. So you just have a conversation around those issues and you take notes, and it's good to have someone take notes for you. Because what we want in the end is to record everything as people say it, yeah? So the next question is about listening. So how much does our organization listen to your ideas and comments? And the parameters for that, get 20 stickers again. Are we listening to a number of people, or are we actively asking for your views at any opportunity? Basically, at any and every opportunity, we're trying to engage and listen to a variety of people. So using your 20 stickers, again, we want you to think about your own experience, but also the experience of other women and other men in the community, and kind of give us a vote.
But we only voted once, no?
Huh?
When
No, this time, it's again spreading the 20 across, if you will.
So
I mean,
am I
sometimes,
representing 4 people?
huh?
Am I then representing 4 people?
No, don't think like this, just think about, you're not as a person representing, so think about, okay, is it the majority in the community who will feel that there's no listening? So then the majority of the beans will need to go there, the stickers,
okay.
yeah? So like the first exercise.
How do I think it would,
Yeah.
look at the end?
Yeah.
In terms of selecting the people that you work with, would you select them carefully to take this into account, that you would have people that are not involved in the project, and how?
Because, for example, I've seen a kind of public verification process work in terms of having, it's basically almost like there's a voting system of yes, that person should be there, no, that person, or grouping different households, like a community meeting basically, and grouping different households, everyone puts their name down, and then the whole group votes on which household is rich, poor, and very poor, has no income kind of thing.
It was just this person.
Can I invite you to put it up, count it and put
Yes,
it
I
up,
will.
please?
Say
Is that done? Is that 20
But
beans
if it is
already?
So there was
an influential person.
Pardon?
If it's an influential person, people don't.
They wouldn't say.
Yes.
Okay, so it was something that it wasn't
It wasn't this.
So
I would
the
say it's listening to a
majority-
number of people. This, for the community leaders, I think it's listening to a number of people.
yeah, and then for the beneficiaries it would be See, I think that's interesting because obviously there was some missing, but it wasn't done with or
It was from the initiative.
Oh no,
the
four
community's
more.
initiative.
Yeah,
You need to use up all your
it wasn't, I think it was supposed to be consulted, not
Yeah.
collaborative or
How many did you count? 7,
But, so yes,
13,
it's-
13, 7.
But
4.
Yeah, you
For the community in general.
it's just
7.
like the how
You
we
need
16.
forward
yeah, there's one more.
reflected
Okay.
in that listing. So if there was a community general, they would not be challenged in terms of receiving the support, whether they were eligible or not. So it's interesting because it's hard to capture that here. But maybe that's the sort of thing that the facilitator would write notes.
Yeah, but for the leaders, I think number of people is the number of people. And for the general community, I think
That's listening to one or two people. So that to me is more like you listen to a few community leaders. In a way, like these two maybe a more depth, but this is like this more on this.
That's like a community meeting, and that's like interviewing the community.
But
But
are we separating the community leaders from the community? The community leaders are also part of the community. So when they are being
We're
consulted as
separating it in the
leaders,
different groups,
when they are being consulted as leaders,
better time frames, so that they can have time to do ABC.
Ladies,
In those
I know
situations,
that you're discussing.
adjust.
put a couple more there.
Yes, but for the money, somebody, the money is to be reviewed, somebody, blah, blah, blah. No, that wasn't possible because of the design of the
that's the first one.
So there was some in,
Like, did you have any signs in the community?
out of the picture.
10, 3, 4, we're missing 3. Oh, there are some, Georgina, in your hand.
same.
I'd say put 2 there, 1 there.
Maybe for the business persons, actively listening to their views. Because we believe they are the experts. I think we can the areas where
Then men in this project. Yeah? A lot of men's impression that there's, you know, the NGO comes and listens to only 1 or 2 people, whereas women think a lot of the women do not get any listening from us.
But are you going to doing it just for women? Or are you supposed to?
Oh yes, yes.
Were you guys doing it just for women? 'Cause I thought-
I was thinking.
I was thinking of whole community.
Yeah. No, women's
No, I didn't make that clear. I'm sorry. That's the whole idea for separating. Yeah. I mean, think about. I didn't make it clear. I'm sorry. So this is about women thinking about other women in their community, and then this is about men thinking about other men. So obviously you can again probe in all sorts of ways into why the score and the spread is like this. Who are the number of people, for example, who are the 1 or 2 people that the organization comes to? So you can ask about that and all that. So, and then if you look at your facilitation sheet, there's some further questions. Now, this bit is about listening. And it's about listening to feedback, complaints, suggestions. It's very broad. But as a follow-up to this discussion, we put in here things about, for example, if you think there's something wrong with the project we're doing now, what do you currently do? Who do you go to? How would you feel most comfortable telling us about things you're unhappy with? What might stop you from telling us you are unhappy? So this is going to some of the barriers of complaining. So if people discuss and suggest a number of things about, well, when you ask them, how would you feel most comfortable sharing your feedback, they might suggest a number of things. And then you might want to say, well, of all the things you've suggested, what are 1 or 2 ideas that might work for the community? And kind of you try to bring it to a conclusion like that. And if there's already a feedback mechanism in the community, this is when you discuss and you find out whether the people already know about that mechanism or are using that mechanism. If there isn't already a feedback mechanism in the community, this is when you consult with them about what would be the best way to set it up. You just get their ideas. Well, actually, if we had if we had a phone line to call, that would be nice. So then you can bring that back to the team and see if you can set up a phone line. Well, actually, if we had every 2 weeks somebody coming and visiting us, and we know they'll be here at 1 p.m. at the mosque, then that would be nice. You can bring that to the team, yeah? So, quickly, the next question is about staff attitudes.
Just a question. Can we use this as a planning tool as well, or it's the first thing I'm wondering?
Because I'm imagining going back to ask this question when it's not integrated into the project? Can we use it as a planning tool when we are designing the project?
When we are designing, if we are new in the community, it won't work. Because you're saying...
So how do we ensure that we have inbuilt these aspects into all the projects that we are designing?
We have to
There are
think...
other tools.
Sorry.
Are there other tools?
Yes,
for planning?
there is guidance about how to mainstream accountability across the program cycle. This is an assessment tool. Largely mid-term or end of the project, go and check in. How are we doing? How are people feeling about our conduct?
I thought you were just talking about responding to some feedback and going away and setting up a particular mechanism like
So it's
using
not
phone
a
lines.
plan.
Why would you do that unless it was part of the design?
Yeah, well, if you are at the midterms, of the project and you're going in and having this discussion, and they've told us, well, actually, there's no listening happening in this project from us, that means there's no complaint mechanism in place. And so that's one thing you can do there and then, just say, well, what can we set up here? Right, so the next question is about staff attitudes. How comfortable do you feel discussing your issues with our staff? Now, this is about the staff they see day to day in their village, If that's partner staff, this is about partner staff. If that's Save the Children staff, the question is about, whoever's in the community. So that's kind of the question we're asking. You get, thingies again. This time think about it. But please make it very quick because we're running the time. Just in this community, do not feel comfortable talking to our staff. And men feel sort of medium and high, but it's all right. Men are kind of feeling a bit more confident about approaching us. Then we can say, well, why is that? Why don't you feel very comfortable largely? How can we help you make me feel a bit more comfortable? So you can have a discussion about that. How often? So then there is some follow-up questions, some probing questions in following the question. So how often do you see the NGO staff? Do you know about our code of conduct? Do you know that our staff are meant to treat you respectfully, for example? Do you know about our child safeguarding rules, how we will keep your children safe when they are participating in our program activities? So, depending on the nature of the program, here is where you can actually probe about the code of conduct and the safeguarding rules here. Whether they know about it, and you can make a note, they don't know about it, and we need to do a bit more about that. Have there been any issues where, the safety of the child is being compromised? Well, this is also a space where you might get issues like, well, actually, I've seen a member of your staff shouting at one of my kids the other day. I'm not very comfortable with that sort of behavior. So always keep in mind, this very question is about staff attitudes and behavior. So this is the space where you can explore all these issues about our staff, how they are behaving, how they are carrying themselves in the community. And this can be both our staff and partner staff, again, whoever is representing us in that community. So, let me just put that, staff. Yeah?
So when you're implementing this, do you suggest that you have completely external people running it?
That's a very, very good question. I think it does help that if an external person comes and facilitates this. And at the beginning of the exercise, if I'm running it, I generally say, I'm not from this project, I'm not from this country office, I do not know any of the people who are running the project or something like that. So I'm not based here. I come from, our office in London, and I want to hear from you. And it's also important how you pose that, because sometimes if the relationships are very good with the community says, what? They've sent this woman to spy on you guys, so we're not going to say anything bad about you, don't you worry. So this has happened once in Armenia. They said, well, who is this woman? I mean, but the scores were so amazing. I mean, everything they were coming up with, you know, yeah, we know these people, they've been here 5 years. So it was a very long-term development project, a long relationship. They really had, you know, time to build those relationships and trust. They feel comfortable raising issues. They feel, you know, they've set up all sorts of, you know, feedback mechanisms and things like that. So that was kind of an exceptional thing. One thing to think about is, if we are doing this with partners, sometimes when I run it, I do a peer review. So take one partner to a community they are not working in. Take the other partner with you to the other community the other partner is working with. So it's a peer review if you want them to get familiarized with the tool, for them to check, you know, these accountability issues. So yes, as a facilitator, it's good to have someone not involved in the project. So that can be an M&E officer, that can be an accountability officer, that can be, I don't know, someone from another project, a program manager coming to see. I don't work in this program. We're just doing this peer review for our projects to check on quality and relationship issues. Is that all right?
Yeah.
Have you found, or has there been any cases where, sort of similar to the example you just gave, except that the people are not just questioning sort of who you are or where you've come from, and then sticking up for their field staff, but then feeling like I'm not sure I want to share my opinions with you because I don't have a relationship?
It hasn't really happened to me. And there have been situations where I was the only outsider and I didn't speak the local language. So I had to ask a member of staff to come and facilitate with me. And there have been times when sometimes these people were a member of SMT. So there can be all kinds of tricky situations, but it's really about, at that point, about the facilitation skills, about how you come across, and how much you can make people feel comfortable. It's also about the culture. You know, in the Middle East, where people are a lot more kind of fierce and do not fear coming across as, you know, criticizing or saying what's in their mind, it's less of an issue. So if it's a senior management, you know, coming up and saying, we want to hear from you, come on, be honest, that's a nice thing, that's encouraging. And then, you know, I've seen that happen. You know, I've come from Cairo and I want to listen to you about these issues because we want to make some changes. Your opinion is important to us. Sometimes people just open up and just really say a lot of things. And other times maybe, that's been my experience, but that was a particular culture. I just don't know. There might be times when you feel stuck. People aren't saying anything. Hey, it's not working.
Like what we did in these kind of things, we capacitated the community. First we translated the material, and then we capacitated the community, our own staff, and then also the children.
Yeah.
And then that how do they collect this data? And we send people from one area to another area to collect this data. And like, you know, from village A, people go to the village B to ask these questions.
Yeah.
From village B, people go to the village C to ask these questions. So that's another way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We have 2 more questions, but I'm going to skip them. I'll just show you the questions themselves, yeah? So you get the idea how this thing is run. The last 2 questions are about satisfaction, community satisfaction. And listen first, formulated 2 questions to allude to satisfaction. how useful has the project work been for you personally? And then, how wisely has money been spent on the project? So you have people vote on them. Now, the personally question should not confuse you. They need to think about their own experience, but again, also thinking about other women and other men in the community. So vote again with 20 beans. And then, how wisely has money been spent on this project? So that question gets a bit tricky. So let's start with the first question. How useful has the work been for you personally? You start with asking the group to identify 2 things that they like about the organization's work, and then 2 things they do not like about the organization's work. Yeah? So if you look at exercise 5, page 4, that's where we are. So you have that discussion first. And then you give them this question. And they vote, and you have a discussion about, well, it's not been very useful for me because, you know, the cash I get from this project, my husband takes and does something, and it's not really benefiting us, something like that. So you have the voting. And then the second question is, again, it starts with a question before you go into voting. In your community, which groups of people have benefited the most from this work? To get a sense of basically the inclusivity of the project and which specific groups that we're having most impact on. It makes for a very interesting discussion. And then you have them vote on the second question, and then you follow up with how could the money have been spent better and the work have been more useful for you. Yeah? And you need to be, of course, careful about this one because it ends up being a long discussion of a long list of things that the community needs and would like to get. That might be within the scope of the program, but is generally outside the scope of the program. They'll say, well, actually, water program, well, it's a necessity, but our actual need is in I don't know, repairing the school or something like that. It can get a bit long, and you need to be kind of respectfully facilitate that bit, and also without raising a lot of expectations. You can say, I can take note of these things, but this is the mandate of our organization. This is kind of the funding we've secured for your community at this point. But really try to focus on the project. We've got this much money in 2 years' time. Are we spending it wisely? Are we not? How can we make things better? So then that's it. This is this first project. It can take up to 2 to 3 hours. The discussions sometimes get really lengthy and interesting. It's very important that, the facilitator is an external person to that village and the project. It's also important to have a note taker who will write things as they are said. Yeah?
Sorry. It's just, when we were talking about the staff attitudes one, and you were saying, for example, there might be specific allegations against specific staff members, and I was just wondering how you would deal with that.
Yeah, okay. So if things like that come up, there's potential that some sensitive things will be said, and we need to protect our staff, but we also need to protect the person who may have been, I don't know, treated badly by our staff. So if you see it going in that direction, you try to kind of gently stop the conversation there and say, would it be all right if we have a conversation after the session and discuss this separately, and I can take notes and then, try to follow up if this is a specific agreement. So you don't let it out in the open and discussion, and invite others also to say, if there are any issues that you'd like to raise about our staff or our representatives. So sometimes it might be the community committee, somebody is corrupt, and they can't say it right there and then. So by inviting people to come and talk to you about these things. But the person who does that has to keep it confidential and know about how to deal with these issues. So it's a bit sensitive. So what happens is you come back with, I'll try to find, if you give me a second, I hope I have the results with me from Egypt. So in Egypt, we did this, and we came back to Cairo to present the results to SMT. Oh no, I don't want to repair. I can't open it if I don't repair. I have all these nice pictures. Anyway, I'll show you what I end up doing. It can't prepare. I'm losing all my...
Oh, your memory set.
Yeah. I think there's something wrong. I wanted to show you actually pictures of like us facilitating this that I had from a few trips, and they were all in this one memory stick I have, and I think I'm not able to open any of my presentations anywhere now. Anyway, I'm sorry. So all of the discussions results can be summarized into this table at the end. And you can put workings, 6 males, 6 females, 5 males, 6 females, something like that across. And it gives you a nice sense to be able to step back and look at those numbers, and especially kind of with the gender differences. So that's the tool. A very quick discussion on your reactions, and then we'll move on. Tell me, what do you think?
Just to pick up on it, so it take 2.5 hours.
Easily, yeah.
I was quite impressed. I was going to ask how long it would take, and there's quite a lot to get through. And if it was a group that really wanted to use their opportunity to discuss this issue, so I imagine it would take quite a lot.
Yeah. That's why, I want to say you can take this exercise along to a program midterm review, yeah, and have it. But it takes a while, so you really need to ask for time from the people in the community to be able to do that. And my one concern when I was learning about facilitating this tool was whether I could actually get people to do the 20 beans thing. Are they going to get it? Are they going to not? How are they going to spread it? Are they going to understand this whole process? And I did it first time in Armenia, in a rural community, and people got it like this. It's just really about a general sense. When you look at the distribution, it's not about 1 is 8 and 1 is 9, but it's really about getting a sense of, actually, when you look at it, most of the people will be on the low side or the medium size, and they get that. So I was worried, and if you're worried that they won't understand it, I would like to encourage you to give it a try. And if it fails, then you can use maybe smiley faces or one person voting and that sort of thing to get around it. But people do get it.
Yeah, I'm thinking that in midterm evaluations, we can put similar questions.
Yes.
Yeah.
Without the discussion,
yeah.
But actually make it, multiple choice, yeah. However you do it. Take the 6 questions.
In focus
yeah.
group discussions.
Yeah.
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 Because most of the time for evaluations or in baselines and midterms, we are hiring external persons, external data collectors. So yeah, it's implementable.
Also, the other thing to think about is that regardless of tagging this along to an evaluation or a review, you know, if you think about the frequency of meetings we're having in the communities, you can devote one of the meetings to this exercise. And I'm sure people will enjoy it and respond to it. Especially when, in my experience, when after the exercise is finished, when you put all of the things up and you recap, you say, you know, we first talked about transparency, and then we talked about your participation in the project. We talked about how much we listen to you. We talked about how our staff are relating to you. We talked about your satisfaction. They're always like nodding. They appreciate it. So use a community meeting for this exercise. And maybe we should do it, you know, especially if we've been in a community, say for a while now, it would be nice to do it. So we can identify projects where we've been running the project for a while now, and we want to check how that relationship is evolving. Or if we have concerns about a certain partner and how they're running things in a community. Well, maybe we want to do this to check how things are going. So we can be selective about how and when we use the tool. Yeah.
I think that if I was in the community, I'd be really grateful for this opportunity to kind of discuss these things.
Yes.
But I also think that if you're going to use this kind of tool, then you have to make a commitment to like fully analyse it afterwards, which will take some time, and also to feed back to the community.
Yeah.
Because I would also feel equally frustrated if I had this whole discussion and I didn't feel like anything changed, or they said, okay, well, we'll take your thoughts back and we'll discuss it.
Yeah.
And then you don't find out what happened to the discussion.
Yeah, absolutely. So, in that sense, it's whoever's facilitating this and getting the results from it need to communicate the findings to the program team in a respectful and sensitive way. There might be things that they would not like to hear. Yeah. So how that whole follow-up process is handled is also important. But I think it's, you know, it would be nice to do this, especially in kind of the midterm of a program. And I don't know, I don't want to say, let's do it like, you know, it can be a 6-month review, and like for every quarterly would be too much, probably, especially you act on things if you make improvements. But you know, a 6-month review, some of the questions can be asked, and then at the end of the year we can come back and ask maybe a bit more quickly some of these questions. You know, how useful has it been? Are we doing well? Have things improved in terms of, you know, how easy you think you have access to information? Have things improved in terms of how easy, how at ease you feel about talking to our staff and things like that? All right. Any more comments, last things? Haji, do you have something?
Yes.
Yes.
Like Kenya, some of our projects are like emergency-based programming.
Right.
And I don't see it because a kind of exit strategy, because it is good to capture some kind of information under that. So it's like sometimes we are moving out without giving notice.
Yes.
Especially to some of the emergency programs that we are. So it's like you find the beneficiaries are coming to the site, but no one is attended to them. So if we implement other programs, we may face some challenge to them. So it is very good to clear on the exit strategy for the emergency program using this kind of tools to inform them that these programs are no longer there and to be there for this period and on.
Yeah. Well, obviously, don't do an exercise like this for a project. Let me think about what to say. Some of the questions are relevant for a program that's ending. You can come in and talk about satisfaction issues. But most of these things are, how easy has it been? You can reframe them to say, almost like an evaluation exercise. throughout the life of the project. This project is ending now, but we want to see how things have been. I guess you could do it. But I think it's better used as an internal tool, I think, isn't it? And for emergency contexts, it would be very interesting to see, because this tool is largely, I think, has been developed for development programs. I don't know how widely the designers of the tool have tested it in emergencies. I should check that. But let's look at the questions. I mean, how easy is it to find out key information? Yes, people will be able to say that in an emergency situation. Participation, yes, they will be able to comment. How much does the organization listen to your ideas? Yes, they will be able to comment. Staff attitudes, they will be able to comment, even in an emergency program. They will be. Yeah. But you're saying you need to be clear about your exit when you're doing this exercise, because you don't want to raise expectations that things will change or something? I'm not sure I understand, yeah.
Yeah, I'm saying, based on this, is it is applicable to when maybe the project is coming to an end, but needs to be clear that when you are moving out on the exit strategy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, sometimes we do strange things. I've been working with some colleagues on setting up complaints mechanisms, and we've discussed about, selecting projects, and some people went and selected projects that are about to end. So they went and they barely set up the project, and in 2 months the project is ending. I'm like, why did you do that? Why did you not select a project where you know you have a couple of years ahead of you, where you can actually test and see if the mechanism is working, how you can make it effective? It's just, yeah, no. Okay. It's 12. I dare not look at the agenda. It scares me, because I know we're a little bit behind. We are behind one exercise. We're supposed to basically start complaints handling from this point onwards till the end of the day. We have a lunch break at 12:45, for which we need to move to our offices. It's very critical. I've learned, talking about, how are you doing, first of all, in terms of your attention and your tiredness? Are you all right?
Yeah.
Are you all right sitting in everything? Okay, good. One thing I've learned, bringing up this whole complaints handling discussion with colleagues, is that when you think about the HAP standard benchmarks, complaints handling is a bit like the scariest, the newest, the most technical thing that we don't really know very much about. And when I was discussing this challenge with colleagues from HAP, they said, well, Burcu, actually, we deal with complaints all the time. Yeah? If you're in the field, if you're in the community, we have to deal with complaints all the time, and people do it. It's just that we may not have formal mechanisms to record it, investigate it in a certain proper way, in a set way. It's just happening ad hoc. So there are things we respond to on a daily basis as they come. There are things that will come to us that we know we cannot respond to individually. So whenever you start a discussion in country with your colleagues around complaints handling, one thing that I tried to raise yesterday is start with framing the whole issue around listening. So as in the listening project, they do talk about not complaints. There's no complaints in there. It's about staff attitudes and listening and all of that. So frame it around listening. How do we listen to communities for positive and negative issues? What do we do when they come up? But also start talking about your experience now. Think about this, basically. Think about an example when you had to deal with a complaint or a negative feedback from programs say who was providing the feedback, what was the issue, what were they talking about, how did they provide it, was it verbal, was it a phone call, was it an email, was it something that came in a suggestion box, I don't know, was it something that came through our community committee member, how did it reach you, and how did you handle it? Just start with this discussion. That's what I wanted to do with you now, and make a full session out of this. But that if you want to make a full session out of this, you can use a flip chart like this. You can put people in groups of 3 or 4, or they can, as I said, discuss it with their neighbor. So these are the 4 questions, and however many people there are, they just write down, who provided it, a lady or something like this. Let me fill it. So I put my name. This is me. Well, when I was in Indonesia, there was a female beneficiary. They called our hotline and they said the community committee member asked for money to put her on the list, beneficiary list. How did we respond? We investigated and replaced the community member. Yeah, something like that. And then another person shares, and sometimes issues about staff behavior come up. Sometimes people tend to share things about kind of staff grievances within the office. So I was unhappy with my manager, or there was this other person who blamed me for this and that. I would try to keep it focused on the community. If especially you don't feel comfortable enough, if you don't know the staff complaints related policies like the grievance policy or whistleblowing policies that apply to our staff, yeah? So try to kind of steer the conversation where you're comfortable facilitating it. And definitions here, and this is based on the SOP, the Complaints Handling SOP, the SCI Complaints Handling SOP. For that, I would like to invite you to pull out your blue folders. Where we start looking at some of the... On the right-hand side, you will find this document. we're using here. Complaint is an expression of dissatisfaction. It's a specific grievance of anyone who believes that the organization has failed to meet a stated commitment or has been negatively affected by our programs or our staff. It primarily includes concerns about standards of service, actions or lack of action by our staff or representatives. And our representatives include, who do they include?
Volunteers.
Yes. Representatives.
Community.
Sometimes community committees are our representative, yes. Consultants. Yeah. That's it, yeah. So it's very wide. So when we're saying we're going to set up a mechanism, the feedback or complaints we're seeking can be about our staff or our representatives in the community. And representatives can be partner staff, consultants, volunteers, even volunteers, because they are there in our name. They represent us. Anything they do wrong is our responsibility, yeah? And even the community committee, people whom we select from the community, regardless of whether we pay them or not, if they're involved in leading or delivering or facilitating parts of the program, they're our representative in that community. So we also are responsible for the complaints about those people. Yeah? That's a complete definition. I needed thing. Feedback. What's feedback? What's the difference? Anyone? You know it, so I'm not going to ask you. That's terrible.
It doesn't have to be negative.
It doesn't have to be negative. That's true.
We also touched on it yesterday that it doesn't have to involve an action in response to it, so it's more a statement of opinion, which is possible rather than a request for action.
Yeah, super. That's not. You say that. Sorry, I didn't mean to be nasty. So it's a positive or negative statement of opinion about our programs and the behavior of our staff, shared for information or action, but not with the intention of lodging a formal complaint. Now, I mean, we struggle with this one a lot because it's really difficult sometimes to separate the two, because then we say, depending on the nature of the seriousness, however, it might actually require a response. Because something that initially might sound like, oh, this isn't that important, this isn't that serious. It's just a piece of feedback. When you dig deeper, other issues might come up. This is especially the case with safeguarding-related issues. So, the general distinction we say is that complaint requires a response, whereas feedback doesn't always require a response. However, it might sometimes do. Can I just say one more thing? At the same time, it comes down to the terminology that the staff and the community are comfortable about using. So there have been many situations where I have heard that the community is not comfortable with the word complaint. And so in such situations, we don't use the word complaint. We use whatever they want to call it. We use feedback, we use suggestions. So in such cases, these distinctions don't really mean much. Yeah? We go with what the community wants and understands best and is comfortable using. And then we use our judgment as to the seriousness of the issue and what requires a response. Of course, we can keep these guidance at the back of our head, but the actual terminology on the ground in the project might be different and may not reflect this. So it's important not to get too hung up about it, but not to be too confused about it as well. Hello.
Hello.
Welcome. You missed lunch?
Thank you.
Sorry about that. So you're waiting for tea. So Bill, we just started looking at complaints definitions. We're looking at the SOP document for a bit and the difference between complaints and feedback. So you came at the very wrong time because you're going to have to listen to me talk for a minute. So.
Sorry, I've got a really
just warning you. So a complaints response mechanism is clear, transparent procedures that provide beneficiaries, staff, and other stakeholders with access to a safe, confidential means of voicing complaints on issues within the control of the agency. So I guess there's quite a few bits to it to emphasize. Clear and transparent procedures, safe and confidential, and also issues within the control of the agency. I guess this is the ultimate definition of the scope of our mechanism. We can only respond to issues that are within our control. There have been programs where we said, let's set up a mechanism, and people have come to us with complaints about government services. In a program where we may not be working with the government, this may be very difficult for us to address. Sometimes people come to us on issues completely unrelated to the project, or issues that are about the implementation of another program by another agency. These things have happened, especially in a camp environment where every organization looks the same to people. This is very possible. So we need to kind of make it very clear to our staff and our beneficiaries, I hate using that word, but that this is the larger scope of the complaints mechanism. And we will, let's see if this one comes next. We'll talk about the scope a bit further, but it can also be for us to determine the scope of the mechanism. Sometimes, or as project, some colleagues have said, we will set up a CRM for a project, for an emergency project, and we will only look at beneficiary targeting. That will be the scope of that mechanism. Only that, because currently we only have capacity to look at that. So it's really for the team to discuss about their capacity and also discuss with the community and say, this is what this is about. You can only call us or write to us or what have you about targeted issues. And in other programs, it's a bit wider. It's about program activities and also about the behavior of our staff. So, as we were writing the SOP for complaints handling, one of the first things that we had to think about was how can we help country offices make sense of the sort of issues they're hearing from the communities. And also, how can we do this not at just project level, at country level, but also globally maybe. And one way to do it is to categorize complaints. And we came up with these 6 categories. And you have them in your SOP documents. Now, you will say, oh, request for information and request for assistance. That's not complaints. That's true, it's not complaints. And initially we didn't have them, so we had 4 categories, just these guys. But then we realized that there are some complaints mechanisms where we might have to these categories. So, and so we have to find a way to kind of record them somehow. And so we said, okay, let's include them as categories so they can get recorded. This is true for a hotline. This can be true for a suggestion box. If somebody put a piece of paper in a suggestion box and it's either of these issues, what do we say to our staff? Do we not record it? Do we tear it and put it away? Or do we record it? So we had to find some way of keeping a record of this. But if your complaint mechanism is a bit less formal than that, if it's, for example, a member of staff holding, at a desk, at a complaints desk, listening to complaints from the community, if somebody comes up with a request for information and assistance, we're saying, well, it's okay if you don't record it, because this is what we're interested in. Yeah? You can just respond to these verbally, there and then, and you don't have to record it. Because we don't want to make extra work for people. We don't want to make these systems an overburden for people. But we want to be able to capture the important issues, yeah? So, category 3, minor dissatisfaction with activities. Examples, missing items, lack of follow-up, that sort of stuff. Timing of the activities, place of the activities, delaying activities, lack of information about certain things, issues like that. I don't know. Happy to hear your examples. Major dissatisfaction, category 4. Issues about our program approach, poor quality items, beneficiary selection issues, safety of children or adults being put at risk. These are all fairly major issues that might come up. Category 5 requires fast tracking. So this is linked to our safeguarding policy. Breaches of Save the Children's Code of Conduct or child safeguarding policy. That is, allegations of inappropriate behavior or misconduct by our staff or representatives. That might be fraud, theft, corruption, misappropriation of goods, requests for payment, verbal, physical, or sexual abuse, sexual exploitation of beneficiaries, behavior which could be perceived to be abusive, such as spending too much time alone with a child with whom we're working. So this is really code of conduct and safeguarding. Allegation, what's the word? Sorry, I forgot the word. Breaches of code of conduct and safeguarding policy by our own staff. Category 6, however, is external focused. So the same thing, but breaches by community members or staff of other organizations. So allegations of child abuse or exploitation of beneficiaries by non-Save the Children staff or representatives. Yeah? And obviously, both require fast tracking. Both are linked to our safeguarding policies and procedures. So if any of these things happen, we go to, if it's about the code of conduct, we go to the fraud and, fraud and theft policy, something like that. And then fraud and corruption policy, I forget the exact name of the policy, it's in here. And fraud and dishonesty policy, excuse me. And if it's about safeguarding, we go to safeguarding procedures. If it's this, category 6, we go, we look look at local procedures for child safeguarding, to look at what is the referral pathways that have been identified for us to use to refer such cases that come to us. And also if it's about, you know, other organization staff, we also probably refer to that organization to deal with those issues. So these are our categories. And the scope. Well, as I said, the larger scope is issues within our country. And to be more specific, these are issues about the project, so what we do and how we do our work, and the behavior of our staff and representatives. Again, representatives include these. Yeah?
You can take questions, but shall we?
I can take questions. Yes, I can take questions. Please. Okay.
Well, I have a question about, I suppose, behaviour that falls below the threshold of the breach of the code of conduct. So, rudeness, which didn't amount to. So, in other words, you're filtering out a complaint about behaviour, which might be a genuine feeling about the beneficiary, but which doesn't, you know, they don't want to raise it as a major breach of the code of conduct, and they wanted to say, oh, you know, we didn't feel we were treated very nicely by the. So you had your category 3 and 4 were about activities, but not activities and behaviour. So I just wondered.
Not activities. What did you say? Sorry, I didn't hear.
On categories 3 and 4, it's about activities. So not about people's behaviour, but about something you got or something you were involved in.
Yeah.
So I'm just wondering about what would you, does that mean you can't complain about somebody being rude to you, but actually it wasn't really kind of a major breach of the code of conduct?
Yeah.
And can I just check on 6, on the top one, because how do you reconcile that with the business about only those things that are within the control of the agency?
Yes. Yeah, I guess that could be, I was just noticing that as I said it. Yeah, I guess it's about, well, we're saying we're not necessarily dealing with it, we're referring it. And we, as you know, we need to know what to refer it to and having kind of local procedures in place, knowing what to do about it. We're not necessarily participating in the investigation or anything else about it. So I guess that's what I can say about it. Your point on minor issues with behavior, conduct, that's a good point. And I guess, would you recommend that that would be included under category 3, for example?
Yeah.
And we can reword it. So, minor dissatisfaction with activities. I guess the one worry that Christine might have about that, and she might argue against our child safeguarding deputy director, is that sometimes, she says, issues that might seem to be minor, when you dig deeper, might amount to something bigger than that. At face value, initially when these come up, they might actually, you know. So probably that would be our caution.
We're doing the categorising, not the beneficiary. But we're deciding whether it's what category it falls into. So that response doesn't apply, because if you discover it's a major issue, you'll categorise it as a category.
Yeah, you'll move the category down. But if that has an implication about whether it's, you know, how it is handled there and then, without being dug deeper, without being further investigated about the issue, then it risks basically us not responding to it well enough because we have seen it as a minor issue. That's what I'm trying to say. But I think I would like to raise this.
Anyway, just a point for discussion.
No, absolutely. I think it's how about minor issues of conduct. And also I think if we put something like this in there, I wonder if it would really put our staff off. What do you think? think? I mean, well, who defines rude behavior? Who defines what's acceptable and not? And how do we really kind of, the person who is categorizing in the end has quite a lot of power, isn't it?
I mean, I think in a sense it does link to the code of conduct, because there's a couple of things in the code of conduct about treating people with respect and sort of working within local culture and custom. So I guess, you know, if you're not doing those things, then you are in breach of the code of conduct, and then whatever appropriate disciplinary procedure would apply. I guess that's how I would interpret it. I had a slightly different question. For category 4, which is like major dissatisfaction with activities, I was wondering why that's not got a fast tracking approach next to it, because to me that's a major, you know, that would require immediate action and investigation. Because, you know, beneficiary selection issues or safety issues or do no harm issues, you know, all of those kind of things, I wouldn't necessarily put them in that level of hierarchy. And I guess my other comment would be that by having 2 separate categories, 5 and 6, it seems like I don't know, it could be interpreted potentially as category 6 is seen as more important or more serious. In that sort of hierarchy.
It gives the impression it's a hierarchy.
It gave me that impression when I first read it.
Yeah.
So it could be a 5A, and it's a small thing, but it's just, you know.
Yeah. Yeah, very good comments.
Yeah. When we receive any feedback or complaint, for translation, it can be opinion, it can be rumor, or it can be reality.
Yeah.
So how we will judge or categorize that this complaint or feedback is reality, opinion, or he has or she has listened to from someone heard it. Because we need to record only the realities, not the opinion of the rumor. So are you agree with me, or do we have any system for that?
Well, I guess somebody has to make the call and categorize the issue that has been brought to us as it has come to us. We have no way of knowing at that particular point in time whether it's rumor, whether it's reality, whether it's a piece of subjective opinion, how widespread an issue it is. It might be an issue that's brought up by one beneficiary, but for us to really say, well, this is important enough for us to act on it, we might actually want to see if it's actually an issue for more than one person. Yeah? So at that point when we're recording it, we can't necessarily know. We only know after we talk to other people. If it's an investigation issue, we investigate and we see, well, actually it was a rumor and all that. So all of that is recorded when we're recording the response. Initially, we can't. Yeah? We just do our best to categorize it.
Going back to the discussion before Nasir's question about these categories, can we be a little bit flexible, I mean, the accountability person, to judge some complaint and change the category? I will give you an example, like if in category 3, we have missing items. But if there are several complaints of missing items, can we move it to category 4 or 5 to further investigate or just to highlight? And if we see at category 4, poor quality items, like we are distributing something and the quality is very poor, it might be a result of some sort of corruption or maybe something. And if there are significant number of complaints coming, so can we be a accountability person has this right to change the category with the comment?
Do you mean after the fact, after investigating that you moved the category up?
Yeah, no, I'm not saying. I'm saying when documenting, like missing items, if there are 12 complaints, so can that person say that with the comment that these are under category 4 because we
Because there's actually quite a number of complaints.
So
around.
it cannot
I think
be.
yes. I think yes. There's all the flexibility. It's really as long as we justify our reasoning. If it constitutes a major issue, yes. And the accountability focal point can have discussions with the complaints committee to decide or to justify this is how I categorize it because, yeah.
Would that not be part of the overall framework of using this complaints mechanism to monitor and improve delivery and implementation? So I think the issue around number of complaints may not be in this section of the workshop, but it's really crucial, even if you look back at number 1, request for information. If you've got half of the beneficiaries asking the same question, who's running this project, you need to go back and say, well, the lesson learned here is we didn't introduce the information we needed to the project. It doesn't change the category of that particular thing, it's still informational, but the fact that it's so many, and again, with quality of something. So I don't know if it's about it shifting up a category, it's actually about a separate thing of how you monitor amounts of complaints about certain things and then that to impact on decision making effectively, which I'm not saying I have the answer for, but I think it's a very important thing to raise.
Yeah, no, absolutely good point. It's really for us to kind of make sense of what we are getting. But our judgment of, the fast tracking that, needs to be there regardless of whether it's, it's set there or not. I think, we are managing this and we have judgment of what to attend to when and the information that we get from our CRM can be very valuable information. And actually, it has been the case, Mark, that in most our country offices where we set up these mechanisms, the numbers of 1 and 2 are like through the ceiling. And initially I was really upset because I thought, we're not really communicating about the mechanism very well. But, the field office actually learned stuff from it, and they tried to do something about it in the end. And even for requests for assistance, I was especially upset about that. They said, hey, actually, it has helped us in our design of the next project in that same community. It has helped us put together a concept paper and approach the donor about it. That was said in Bangladesh just recently. So when I say to them, well, if these things don't come up, if you don't have the time, if your stuff is overburdened, don't record it, they're like, no, but we want to record it because we put up a concept on it. So, very nice, very good comments. We talked about this. Different types of entry points, you've already listed them. We see a lot of suggestion boxes. We see increasing number of hotlines now. Mail accounts are not very much. In urban centers, in head offices, we see, and especially for young people, because that's something that they request. In Colombia we have it, in Palestine we have it, and in Wales we have it. Information centers are an example from Myanmar. It's like centers they set up in 30 villages for an emergency program, and they were called information and feedback centers. So they were staffed, and people could come in to get information, but also, have suggestions, conversations about feedback. They had feedback forums, and they had drawing exercises for children. So they had these feedback sessions with activities with children as well. That was really nice. Meetings, open house meetings, regular meetings basically are happening all over the place. It's just really about putting in that agenda item about feedback in that meeting, or having separate feedback open house meetings on a regular basis. So that's another. Community help desk, I don't hear about it very much. Another one that's been taken up is the beneficiary reference groups. It's a group of people from the community who are selected by the community, who are largely different than the community committee who's implementing. They need to be, because there are sometimes complaints about the community committee. This has been taken up in Kenya and in Ethiopia and in other places where we do, the field offices are really far away, our staff cannot visit often, and we really need to put in some power in the community and rely on their help in being kind of the link between us and the communities.
Do you know any project in Kenya that's used?
In Dadaab we use them, in livelihoods and child protection, basically in the camp where we do all these programs. We set up and then there were issues. Our colleague said some of the community committee members started acting like they've got a lot of power, and I don't remember exactly how he put it, but they decided that actually they had to replace them. They do these refresher trainings, and then they meet, they try to meet often with them to check on what they're hearing, what are some of the questions. They give them Q&A sheets to be able to respond to questions and things like that. And as we were engaging them, they said, "Oh, we got a little bit of this power dynamic in there, and we had to change some of them."
But it's made up of beneficiaries.
Yes.
So.
Yeah. And they have to have the trust, kind of, them to be selected by the beneficiary group. Okay. So a few examples. This is from. Am I in the way? For some of you. This is from Bangladesh. This was a complaints box that was set up largely to report sexual exploitation and abuse issues. And they picked up thousands of calls and were able to report. In Wales, we have a text messaging and an email account. And it comes straight to a dedicated person, the message. And for such safeguarding issues, they have an email. As I said, I was telling you about information in Myanmar. These are the drawing cards that they use. I haven't been organized enough to lay out my examples for you, but I will at some point do that. Luckily, so this is a very new thing from Myanmar that they are trying out this year. This is a feedback envelope that they designed in several of the villages they work in. They are testing it. I asked for a translation of it, so I can't really explain what it says. But I guess, this is some of their contact information here. And then they write a little bit about their issue, and they can nicely fold and then put it, or give it to a designated person or put it in a box. I don't think there are boxes, so it must be given to an officer. And they're actually, getting about, what did they say? About 17 and a quarter last quarter, about 70. So they are keeping track and doing little pie charts and things about what issues have been coming up. So they did these drawing cards, so they would have children draw, before and after project sort of exercises to get their feedback on things that are going well or not. They use drama, basically, with children to communicate feedback and to communicate information about the project. So this child is being a water pump. There's a nice sticker book that has been produced by our Wales office, and it touches on participation and accountability. It's a nice tool. It's like a listening kind of listen first tool almost for children. So it talks about, they give me information and then they're giving like sticky dots, or they mark here, do adults explain things to you properly, and then they mark things. I'll Another example is children's feedback committees from Zimbabwe. Gloria, you must have been in the country office when the children's feedback committees were being piloted with Chris McIver.
No, I wasn't.
You weren't. Okay. So they asked a group of children to be selected by children in the community to form a feedback committee, and they hired an ombudsperson to support these children. And these children were basically sharing information, but also soliciting feedback about the project from their peers, but also even from adults sometimes, as long as the adults trusted them and saw them, legitimate enough to share their comments with them. And they brought what they heard to a hearing committee, and the hearing committee was not just us as a partner, it was actually, it had government representation. It was quite high kind of profile. And it was quite very labor intensive kind of pilot, because the children had to be supported quite a lot, and there were a lot of risks involved in terms of, the issues that they were able to bring and how the community saw them. They were labeled as spies, for example, and the adults looked down on them and saying they were not going to speak to children about issues. But the one good thing was that they were able to actually bring a lot of issues to us that we could not have heard from adults otherwise. Issues that were raised by their peers, such as, I think it was some sort of a feeding program, food distributions, and for children who were living with their extended families, there were issues raised, such as my stepmom is not giving me enough food as much as my siblings and things like that. So it's a very labor-intensive kind of model to go with, and I think in the last couple of years there have been a couple of countries who were interested in forming these children's feedback groups, and I think I always kind of caution them about the possible risks involved and the amount of support the children might need. And I think it's also important to think about, again, the scope. What sorts of issues do we want them to listen to from their peers? I think limiting it to their peers, but also saying, well, if we set up a little children's feedback committee, you can go to them about issues about the activities. Are you happy with the activities? Or things like that.
Sorry, how old were the children? Was it?
I don't remember exactly.
I think they were adolescent.
Yeah, they must be. So there was a discussion this morning about doing accountability in insecure environments. This is an example from Pakistan, Cash per Word program, where we were working in an area not safe for us to even put our logo and talk about who we are. But we still were able to put out information boards and share information about the project and what people were entitled to. And even on top of that, set up a hotline to listen to feedback and complaints. And basically this red line says, this number is for an organization supporting health, child protection, livelihoods, and other community development programs. And for feedback, call this number. Yeah? Any thoughts from our Pakistan colleagues on how that worked?
This number only states the rights of these laborers who are working over there, like how much they will be paid, what will be their working hours, and everything will be their agreed wages. And if they have any complaints, there is a number. We don't say that this is a Save the Children number or something. It only says that we are an organization working for you, providing you better livelihood opportunity. So if you will provide us your feedback, or if you have any complaints, please direct us.
now our film, which is one of our key guidance tools on setting up complaints and response mechanisms. How many of you have seen this film before? You have seen it? Okay, good. So this film we produced in 2011, based on our experience setting up complaints mechanisms in Dadaab, Kenya. That was the first country office that year actually that went ahead and set up something. It talks about two mechanisms. One is a complaints desk, information and complaints desks for children in our child-friendly spaces in the camp. And the other one is a beneficiary reference group for adults. And the film accompanies our how-to guide on setting up complaints mechanisms, which is in your folder. And it looks like this. It's a 3-page guide on the steps to setting up complaints and response mechanisms. The film mirrors this guide and walks through these 10 steps. And this is basically our key guidance for setting up CRMs. And the SOP document basically adopts these 10 steps. So in the section about country office procedures, you will see the 10 steps listed, and the how-to and this film are among the key tools that this SOP recommends and advises our staff to go to. So I hope that this will make kind of the steps involved clear. I have to apologize, we do not have speakers, so let's see how well we'll be able to hear everything. This conversation needs to take place when you're setting up a project. When you're having those initial meetings with the community, just part of the agenda should be, we want to listen to you throughout this project. We want to set up a way for us to be able to do that. What should that be like? What should that look like from the beginning? Or at any given point, if we don't already have it, it can be part of a community meeting. Yeah? And we have a tool for that, which especially has been designed for children, but it works with adults as well. It uses a story. It's in your packs. It's called How to Consult with Children and Adults on Complaints Handling. So basically, based on our kind of discussions about how do we bring this sensitive issue up, how do we start talking about complaints with the communities, and especially with children, we decided to write a story. And we tested it in a couple of countries, and we wrote this how-to to kind of roll out to the breakthrough countries afterwards. So the story basically can be adjusted to any context. It talks about a project where quite a few things go wrong. So information is not shared properly, staff member is yelling and pushing children around, or some of the kids are missing things, and things like that. So you kind of read that story, or you make up a story that's relevant to your context, and you ask the children, so what went wrong here? And they pick up a lot of things, and then you basically start talking about, well, if this happened in your community, what would you do? Would you talk about it? Who would you talk about it? If things go wrong now in this project, in your project, in the community, what do you do? And then, you know, basically, if there isn't currently a feedback mechanism in place, then you continue with questions about, well, we want to hear from you. How would you like to express your feedback to us? And then they come up with a zillion million of examples. They want TV programs and radio shows, and they say, I can go and talk directly to the director of the organization. They come up with a long list of ideas. And at the end of the session, it's basically for us to encourage them to narrow it down to one or two options that we think are feasible and they think that would work for them and also for their peers in the community. And basically you follow it up. So that's kind of the guidance on that. It's a whole session plan. So it has all the introductory activities and icebreakers and things like that. Coming back to the SOP. We have about 15 minutes to the break. Hang in there. So, this complaints and feedback handling flowchart. It basically tries to outline roles and responsibilities attached to handling certain various categories of complaints that we just talked about. At the back, you have the categories explained, and also in the bottom, there's some guidance notes that talks you through, that helps you read the flowchart. So this is brand new, we just wrote this. Any feedback on that is most welcome, really. So if we were to try to read this together, do you read it? Okay. So here's the complainant, and it comes to an accountability focal point. Now, not in every project we have accountability focal points. It can be anybody, any program staff that receives this complaint. Yeah, so it comes to a program staff, ideally a focal point. And if it's a category about 1 to 3, let me sort of put up the categories here. Yes?
So that very first arrow from the complainant to the focal point is one person. Would it be one person?
Sorry?
Would it be one person that's accountability focal point? I mean, in the project I'm thinking of it will be, but that arrow of just getting from complainant to that focal point.
Oh, you're thinking about your project, and you're thinking this is the guy sitting in our office, and there's like a community people in between.
I'm wondering who that accountability focal point, at what level is that? Project accountability focal point, like one person managing possibly a project across 30 different communities spread over vast area, or is it one person with a community?
It's going to be different in every context. I don't know how to.
Is that the person receiving the complaint? So it's representative of a number of different.
Yes.
figures.
So let's try to think about this as the person on our side. So a Save the Children or a partner person that the complaint comes to. There might be people in between, but this is the entry point to our system, let's think. Our organization or partner organization, yeah? So this is staff or representative, this guy. Or let's think about it like this. If it's category 1 to 3, so it's request for information, request for assistance, minor dissatisfaction. If this is like a proper accountability focal point, that's right there in the community actually. We have the luxury of that. Or if it's a program officer who is really kind of day-to-day in the communities, who has a lot of information about the program, a lot of information about the community context. He or she will be able to respond to this immediately, right there in the yeah. So that arrow doesn't even have to go down all the way. It's a conversation. They come for an information. If this person is able to provide it, there it goes. It's responded to. Minor dissatisfaction. It is likely that this person will have to take it to a wider group of program colleagues and say, well, I've heard this from X many people, or from somebody today. and it's about missing items, it's about planning of the activities, it's not working out for the community, what are we doing about it? So these group of people that the issue is brought to discuss is field level program or accountability, program and accountability officers. So people who have good knowledge of the program and who have good knowledge of the context of the community, yeah, that are able to respond and make changes to this minor issue. And then accountability focal point takes that decision back and back to the complainant. It's the response is given. Hello.
Is it okay if I could implement the new communities?
That would be great. Yeah. Is it okay to come? Yeah, so is that line clear? This is the simplest bit, yeah? So it's either responded to directly or a quick discussion and the response is delivered. Complaints categories 4 and 5. So 4 is a major dissatisfaction, yeah? So the issue of major dissatisfaction is brought to a group of people, and you can call them a complaints committee or whatever you want to call them, that is a bit more high level than this, because there is some major issues involved about the program. It can be about the program approach, it can be about selection issues, it can be, you know, a bit more major. So you've got maybe like the program, a little bit higher up program manager involved in this conversation, and so forth. So category 4 comes to a higher level program people, issue is discussed, response is delivered. Yeah. Category 5, however, if you remember, is about code of conduct and child safeguarding. So here, immediately, the safeguarding policy and the code of conduct related policies take over. So this is what we try to represent with this bit of the flow chart. With issues like that, if the accountability focal point brings it to key program staff, generally, the country director will be involved. Generally, if it's a safeguarding issue and if it needs investigation, an investigation team will be involved. Yeah? And then, after investigation, the response is delivered through the focal point. If there is no need for an investigation, the higher level program staff and the country director, they come to a decision and then the response is delivered. Yeah. And in here, in case there's corruption, here you've got your HR people, you've got your safeguarding focal point, people who have knowledge about how to deal with category 5.
Can we put audit here?
Yes.
With HR?
Yes, whoever's in the country, whoever's able to deal with these issues, who has the knowledge of the existing policies and procedures.
I mean that here, key program staff, safeguarding focal point, HR, and audit.
Yeah, you can add that, yeah. Category 6, immediately referral as per local procedure for child safeguarding. We don't investigate this. It's not going anywhere. It goes directly as per the referral policy. And here the problem is not all of our country offices have their local procedures for child safeguarding. Especially after transition, I have seen it that the new country director that's coming is not aware, they're not from UK, say UK or something, they're not aware that they have to have local procedures for safeguarding. So we might face some challenges with this bit. And sometimes even when there is a local procedure, the capacity of the government to deal with referrals about abuse of children in communities is not there. So it gets a little bit complicated, but in terms of roles and responsibilities and the pathway, this is kind of the simple guidance on this.
Regarding the category 6,
Yes.
I can share a few examples. Yeah.
Yes, let's do it.
Yeah. We capacitated, like we arranged few seminars and workshops for the government key people, and including the local representatives, local government representatives, that how they will tackle the referral cases. And then, like for example, teacher beating student. It is like government issue. How government will take this? And for example, if there is any abuse in the community, how community will report it to the police. So we were successful in taking actions by the community against some teachers, against some influential people in the community with positive results in 2007, I think, yeah, with Civil Children Sweden projects. So yeah, here the capacity building of the community, the local government, and the provincial government or district government is important. It's how they will tackle this. Yeah.
That's any other? Yes.
Where you say learning and continual improvement, I think it would just be really nice if there was an indication of who should be doing this there. It's the kind of thing that everybody thinks will be done.
Yeah.
And nobody really does.
Yeah.
So it might be nice to, I mean, I know it's really everyone, but it might be nice to just say that there so that everybody knows it's their responsibility.
In an earlier draft of this, we had this red box that said organizational knowledge pool. And we were like, where is that pool? It was actually, well, that's true. It's I know exactly. Where is this thing? Good question. It's difficult for us to really suggest any one particular role for this. And in a lot of country offices, we do not have dedicated people for this role. I think it largely rests with our need colleagues, and to the extent to which we're able to move from any need to many or to meal, these issues will be taken up, and SCI will have to start thinking about learning issues fairly soon, as you know. But I think the issue is that as long as that whole cycle is completed and recorded properly, we should be able to take a look back at our complaints database and see what has been coming up. What are the issues in our management of this? Are people using it? Are people not using it? What sorts of issues are coming up? How many percentage are we able to respond? In terms of timeliness, how long is it taking us to deliver a response? There's tons of studies now about how to make complaints mechanisms more effective. And it's fairly straightforward, but there's one paper that says the shorter the distance between the delivery and the processes that need to happen in between to the response, the faster and the more efficient the system works, and the more satisfied community members are with the system. So we don't want to make it terribly too complicated. It gets a bit trickier when there's remote management issues, when field offices and partners are, kind of far apart, and that sort of thing. So we need to, as we assign roles and responsibilities, we need to think about the time it will take to communicate these issues, the time it will take for people to meet and make a decision, and then the time it will take to then deliver that response. And and keep those kind of distances kind of as short as possible. Yeah.
Can I just respond to Zoe's question that I think what we were talking about at lunch and the M&E system and relationships with the M&E, this is not the same, but if the outcomes of the learning feedback if fed into the M&E system, that's presumably where you can get this circle of learning continual improvement, because you're feeding back what's gone not wrong, but what components into your
that's great. I have a slide. Oh my god. Okay. Here is a thing that was given to me by one of our ERPs about how the data we're getting from our complaints mechanisms can impact our M&E data. So this is from a WASH program, 100 communities targeted, X liters was water was distributed, 40 beneficiaries received at health clinics with water courses, 80 complaints were received about the quality of water. And so basically, which of the above indicators tell us in the quickest way possible that there's an issue with the quality of water? Yeah. So it's the complaints, isn't it, that tell you there's something going on.
So they didn't respond to month one.
What does that What does that indicator tell us about how well the quality of the program was being monitored?
Well, being monitored, there's nothing being done about it.
Yeah. So, I mean, this is just an example of how the CRMs can complement our monitoring activities and can bring in important information.
I have a couple of quick questions about the diagram. So, just following up on the time issue that you're talking about, would you give the complainants a sort of deadline that you would aim to get back to them by if it was a serious complaint? So, would you still aim to get back to them within a week, within a few days, if it's a serious issue? There's a lot of links to go through.
Yeah, well, it's advised, and it's part of the 10 steps, is that as you design your system, you decide on a time frame for response, and you communicate it to the community to say, you know, you should expect a response in 10 days, 15 days, a month or so. And if you're unable to deliver your response within that time frame, you're supposed to get back to them and say, we're working on it.
And then I was also going to say, under category 6, that's assuming that there is a local procedure in place and that there's the infrastructure there to respond to that, the seriousness of that incident. What do you do if there's not the procedure there? And also, do we not have a responsibility to ensure that it's being followed up if the focal point is somebody in our programs?
Yeah, good questions. I don't know. If the procedure is not there, I guess it's a good trigger for the country office to start thinking about these issues. And also, it depends on our role and our history within that community. If we have been in that community, say, implementing protection programs for a while, that puts us in a very different situation than if we've just come in and have not done this sort of work. It is likely that people are coming to us with these sorts of concerns because they see us as an actor in that community who has been protecting, who has been providing, child protection activities or messaging around these issues, and they see us as a kind of someone that could help out, obviously. And if that is the case, if we have been in that community doing protection sort of work for a while, we will be in a better position to know where to go, where to help out, and we will be likely more involved in protecting the child, keeping child's ID confidential and that sort of thing, I would assume. Do you have any comments on that?
No, it's a question that keeps coming back again and again and again, because it's a very difficult question, isn't it? Very difficult to know what to do. I mean, the most important thing to do is to do the work beforehand, the preparation work, in terms of doing, identification of referral pathways and so on.
Yeah.
So you've done that preparation, then it's easier to deal with the problem when it appears. If you haven't done the preparation, then it's difficult. And there's all sorts of issues about, whether you can trust the police to handle a complaint sensitively, whether the services exist, and so on and so forth. So it varies very much from place to place.
It can be very serious,
But then there's the other part of what Becca was saying, and that's the fact that we have the duty to respond back to the complainant. So do you just go back to the child or community member and say, well, I've passed it on, and then if nothing happens, you say, well, I've passed it on. It's difficult because you do need to go back to them and say, this is, perhaps you've already taken on the responsibility to deal with it in a way.
We'll have some assurance that there isn't another person who will meet with them and who has met with them.
Yeah, and that if you're not part of that local procedure, then you can't feed back to the complainant, but at the same time you have to.
Let me show you. I'm ready for a break. You're ready for a break, aren't you? We can take a break now, and then after the break I'll show you two more things. Tools, the database, and a feedback recording form. And then we'll go into designing your feedback mechanisms. We'll basically have you draw up your charts like this. Is that all right? Yeah. Okay. Enjoy the break. And by 6. So on a quarterly basis, if this information is entered, the information is automatically analyzed into those categories. And I'll show you how to, it's only for 2013, there are formulas in there and you can make it useful for 2014, so it's a yearly database. And I'll show you on Thursday how you can make those changes to it.
You have this file.
Can I just ask you, say you get like 50 requests for the same information, like when do we get our cash transfer, which day of the month, would you advocate that you log every single one of those 50 complaints just so that you're sure that you're getting back to the beneficiary, or do you have a cap and say, we've received this by so many?
Good question. I don't know the answer to that.
Okay.
Yeah. I think a lot of discretion rests with the program, with the team who manages the CRM. We don't want in the end the complaints mechanism to be an overburden for our staff. In many cases, our people who keep this database are data entry officers, and they have tons of other data to enter. In Dadaab, what happened was they had so much information to enter, and then plus on top of that, the complaint data coming in, and everything was backlogged. And for a couple of months, the responses were delayed. So that's not good. So in a situation like that, obviously we will say, don't enter every single information request. And in other cases, we can't even use these Excel sheets. In Bangladesh, none of our partners have computers in the projects where we're doing the CRM. Sorry, I shouldn't say that. So what they've done is they've put together a logbook that has these columns, and they write it by hand. And they analyze it manually, of course. So, here I was happy that, I created an Excel sheet, it does everything automatically, people will have an easier time. And then, what Excel sheet are you talking about? It's like people don't have computers. So, we have to make do with what we can, and also help people so that this doesn't become an overburden.
Sorry, one more question. So you don't have a category of complaint in that?
I do. It's just a
screenshot.
screenshot.
Oh, sorry.
I'll show you that. I don't know what's wrong with my memory stick. I think it's corrupted.
Oh, it won't scroll?
No, it won't. This is a screenshot. It's a slide. Yeah. Could I ask you to go back to your blue folder and take out this feedback recording form? to record complaints and feedback that they hear when they are in the communities. And it mirrors the database format exactly. So whatever is entered, it follows exactly what's in the database up to a certain point, because afterwards it's all about the response. So what we want to emphasize here is that we want to familiarize our program staff to this feedback recording form and encourage them to carry copies of it when they're in the field. This way, we want to generate a culture of listening as well as recording. Having said that, they need to have an understanding of the form, they need to have an understanding of the different categories, and they need to have an understanding of this structure so that they know where to bring this to once they get back. Yeah? Especially if issues around category 5 are recorded here, they need to know very, very well, they need to keep it very confidential and only bring it to a select key people. Yeah? They cannot discuss it if it happens that they hear something on category 4 or 5 or 6. Yeah? So there are some sensitivities, but overall, we want this recording form to help us with listening and recording. And if possible, we want to give it to our partner staff as well, once we orient them to the whole idea of complaints and feedback handling. How does that sound? Is it workable?
Yeah, you know, normally the field staff complain. They say that, oh, we have so many forms.
Right.
We have to collect so many data. And then they say that, like if we say that this is another form. So it's a concern of the field staff that normally they say that, oh, we have so many forms, we have to collect so many data, so this is a new form. It's another headache for us.
Yeah. Well, I mean, of course they have a point. And I don't have an answer to that.
Can I suggest something on that? Normally, when we write down the reports or the progress reports, there are some questions like beneficiaries feedback or something. So this form might help program team. We can give it to them that this is not a complaint form, this is a feedback and complaint form. So it will help you to record the complaints during your field visits, and those feedbacks can be recorded into your monthly reports, along with the quotation as it has.
Yeah, of course. That's nice. I'm glad you said it. And they need to record it as people say it.
Yeah.
So they need to be really kind of trained on that as well. And it helps us basically pick things up as we go along, because a lot of these feedback and complaints handling issues come up in our day-to-day activities. It's just that we don't record it. We deal with it informally in a discursive way. And what this form will help us do is we'll start documenting it and we'll start following up on it so that some things don't fall through the cracks, especially if they're important issues. Also, it is called feedback and complaints form. Now, it might be that they receive something very nice. Well, it's maybe nice to also record that and bring that to the program meeting. Yeah? It is good practice to record positive and negative feedback, even if it's something that doesn't require a response. That's our guidance to staff. But if it's a complaint, that is, if it's an issue that requires a response, it has to be recorded. Yeah? That's the guidance that I would like us to spread. Feedback, it's good practice to record. Complaint, mandatory.
I think I'm getting confused about the different methods. Because I was thinking, like in Nazir's example, I mean, a good way of being able to have this CRM would be complaints boxes, so that it kind of reduces the work of the field staff. But then if you have a complaints box with like a template like the one you showed for Cambodia, it's obviously not as good as someone directly talking to a, say, member of staff, because you don't get that wealth of information maybe. So are you advocating that they do this in addition to that, or instead of that, or how
I'm
do you get how it
advocating
works?
that this becomes kind of a way of working in addition to any formal mechanisms this is done. Because, you know, you can be proactive about asking for feedback and filling these forms. I'm not necessarily saying we take these forms and we go out and we collect feedback. That can be done as well, and that can be a more formal mechanism. Instead of a suggestion box, we might say, you know, we'll take some time and do this proactively every month. Yeah. But there will be, you know, it's always better, as we discussed this morning, to have more than one mechanism in place. And this is about, you know, really cultivating that culture of proactively seeking feedback in our day-to-day activities and bringing that. And it will be about, it will complement any formal other mechanism that might be in place. It might come to be actually more effective when you think about it.
So what you mean is it's more of a method of organising the information you're receiving rather than a method of CRM. So like in this case, maybe you have the complaints box, and then you train the field staff and you say, when you go out to the communities, ask them for complaints or feedback, and if they do give you a response, then fill this form in. And if you can go and proactively ask 5 people to do this, then fill in this form. But we're just saying do that instead of sitting with a group of people around you and nodding off. So it's actually more, is that what you're saying?
It's about ensuring that we're documenting on the field the things that we might be hearing in our monitoring visits, in our community meeting and such. It is also about, you know, being proactive and, you know, going and seeking this, you know, as well. So it's really, it depends on how we want to use it, how actively we want to use this. I think it's good for our field staff to have copies of it. In case things happen, they record it. And these might be things that, for example, the people may not feel comfortable writing it and putting it in a box, or they may be illiterate and they can't do it, and they raise it, and then, oh, we've got this form, we can adequately record and categorize already right there. So it's a way of complementing the existing mechanism. Okay. Is that, did I get the right?
Yeah, no, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay, just
We gotta move on, yeah.
suggestion. If you go through this form, in the start it says complaint and feedback recording form. But there is no section for recording the feedback, and we have mentioned complaint number of times on this one.
Oh, okay, so you're saying
It's not, it's really
put
a
slash
complaints form.
feedback.
Yeah.
Okay, that's good feedback. Let me do that.
I had a question about what someone does if they pick up a sensitive complaint on this form. So should they record it here? I'm not sure if you were explaining already, but I wasn't quite clear on whether they should, if they pick up a 5 or a 6, they put it on here and it also goes into the database, or should they not do that because it's confidential?
The database recording thing, absolutely it should.
Okay, so how do you maintain confidentiality?
It depends on, again, the structure. So who do they bring it to that will put into the database? And all these people, key people, have responsibility to keep it confidential.
Okay.
Yeah. 20 to 4. At this point in time, I would like you to spend some time thinking about your complaints mechanisms. And okay, about complaints committees. You can have, let me tell you this, you can have a variety of representation. Again, this is very context specific. Who will be involved? Who has the power to act and decide on issues? Who has to make, who is informed enough basically to make decisions, and who can make things fast so that things don't stall. So it can be, you know, a mixture of all these things. But the key messages is a combination is necessary to ensure transparency, confidentiality, impartiality. Too complex, a setup may be challenging. It needs to be legitimate in the eyes of the user, and persons who are potentially subject of a complaint should not be dealing or deciding on a complaint, and the committee needs to have power to decide on the remedy and say who is right and who is wrong. Okay. We'll look through this. So, design your own CRM. So here, I want to ask you how you want to go about this. I can either give you scenarios, or we can agree on scenarios that are relevant to the situations that you are coming from. And you can work in groups of your preference who want to work in similar programs or in similar structures. Or you can actually work individually, thinking about a particular program that you want to kind of spend some time thinking about setting up a structure for. So we can do a mixture. We can, for head office colleagues, maybe you want to come together in pairs or such, take a scenario and think through these questions. So who is it for? What are the possible barriers? What can be complained about? What entry points will you use? What steps will you take to implement it? How will you make it safe? How will you let beneficiaries know how to complain? Who will manage the system? And how will the complaints be dealt with and learned from? Now, this is...
that now packed? That list?
Sorry?
Is that list of questions anywhere in here?
No, I'll give you the slides. So, if you are to work on a scenario, I want you to think through some of these questions, but really focus on kind of, if you know the details of the program, you can start thinking about actually a flowchart. How many offices you have, or how many partners you have, will the partner be involved in managing it, what's their staff, who is the right person to receive, who could, and who should be involved in this, lower committee or this higher committee and that sort of thing. And, really focus on the structure, the roles and responsibilities, and less time on some of the other questions, because it's a long list of questions. Does that make sense?
Yeah, you had a slide up about the complaints committee, who should be in it.
Yeah.
Where is that on the flow chart of the committee?
The committee is this and this. So these are the people who sit together to discuss a response, yeah? And for certain categories, it's a higher or lower level of seniority of people engaged. Yeah. What would you like to do? I want you to organize yourselves basically around this. Haji, Hassan, what does make sense? What makes sense for you? You have already systems in place. You want to think about your existing system. You want to think about a new project you want to expand to. You might want to draw out your system so that you can present it to the country office. Do you want to do that? Okay, so do you want to work separately on your own?
Yes, we can.
Because your situation is different. Haji, what do you want to work on?
Yeah, separate one for my country, and then I can present to the SLT.
Okay, but you want to work on like a project of your choice? You want to choose a project, or do you want to work on a country level system, or what are you thinking?
Yeah, I can choose a project, and then I can expound to how I can support the other area offices or the country offices.
Okay. What do you want to do, Nasser?
In our planning, we will start from one project, then we'll replicate in same province and then in other provinces.
Okay, what sort of project do you want to work on?
It's Cash for Work livelihood project and vocational training project. It's a newly started project. So we want to start in that project. Yeah.
Okay. Well, do you want to have people join you and you can explain project and you can discuss with them and work through these questions?
Yeah.
Or do you want to work on your own?
People will be good because input is very important.
Okay.
Yeah.
So those of you interested in working through this with Nasser, please join him.
We also need input.
Huh? You too need input. So, well, okay, then how should we do it? Then people interested in working with Haji and Hassan, join them and they will tell you about their country context and you can work through the questions. Is that all right?
Would it be worth dividing into people who got the grievance mechanism they wanted to design, and those who hadn't specifically, but we hadn't to put another lead person?
Yeah, so that's basically what I'm trying to do. These, and you have got mechanisms to design, and other colleagues don't necessarily, right? So, Gloria, what would you like to do?
I'd like to work on a project.
Huh?
A project specific, project starting in April for children and
Okay.
cross-border.
Okay, so these colleagues basically will talk about the project context and can tell you who is it for and what can be the possible barriers. So you can discuss those things. And then you can discuss, you know, whether you work through partners, whether the partner will manage it and all of that, and try to come up with something like that. Is that all right? Okay, I'll let you organize yourselves. There's flip charts here.
We'll do through meetings, through different forums, through existing community structures like community elders, village committees. And secondly, we'll print some material to inform them what are their entitlements, what are program standards, and how they can do this complaint response thing. What everyone will give you how you decide. This is what I explained that we will discuss with community children and we'll go to the area and visit, and then we will see what could be the best way. Either it can be a suggestion box, information desk, beneficiary desk, all these things. But to make it short, what we have come through our previous assessment that hotline phone system or this face-to-face interaction are the best medium to get feedback or complaints from the community. How do we make the system safe and accessible? So the important thing is that we keep the identity of our beneficiaries confidential. We do not reveal it to any other person who can do any kind of harm. So we'll have certain protocols, procedure which should be followed by our staff for this particular purpose. We will train them, and we will also train in the community that this system is used to benefit them and to improve program quality. It is very neutral system or something like this. How will beneficiary know about how to complain to you? So this is, I think, I have covered. There will be session. We will be informed through different mechanisms that how they can contain us. Like there will be visibility material. We saw in the previous session, like there were different kind of material or tools used to inform the community about the complaint response mechanism. Who will manage the system? It will be managed by all Somali or Kenya program. No one alone will be responsible to manage the system. Meal team only will act as a medium or a channel through which complaints will be coming, and then it will be passed to program team. Management will be doing their role, and then it will be responded back to the complaints. So we will have an information flow chart which we will share, so that will explain how this will be done. How will the complaints dealt with and then how? So again, we will have certain policy procedure and protocol that for each category of complaints, how that is going to be handled and how we will be using key learning from these feedback and complaints. So should I come to this?
Yeah. Do you want me to hold it? Do you want me to hold it up? Or
You can hold it down.
I think Haji, you should hold or you should explain.
No, we can't see. Sorry.
I try to remember clearly what we have done. We have divided according to the complaint's nature, because in the previous session we learned that there are few complaints which needs fast track processing. So there is, on my right side, there is a system which is which is like information flow for category 1 to 4, and the second is for 5 and 6. So in one we have field offices where we have accountability focal person. These people will be based there, so these will be the one who will be taking the feedback or complaints. So if the complaint is received by accountability focal person in field, so their best efforts will be to resolve it at field level, because most of the issues can be resolved at field level. They will pass the information to the relevant program team, or if there is anything that needs to be decided by the area manager, they will share it with the area manager. So we hope that most of the complaints or issues will be resolved at a field level. On my right side, there will be an arrow that is going upward, saying if complaint is resolved, that goes back to the accountability focal person, and he or she communicates back to the complainant. So if this doesn't happen in the field, so the other option is to, there might be some complaints related to program design, or maybe related to something that needs to be done at Nairobi level with the technical managers. So they are going to pass this information to accountability focal person at Nairobi level. And they will also copy area manager. They will copy because he or she should be involved in the process. And that this complaint needs some attention from Nairobi. So when it reaches to the accountability focal person in Nairobi, he will pass this information to the relevant program team, or maybe director PDQ, or whoever is relevant at Nairobi level, to further process the complaint. So when it is passed to program team or to the director PDQ, they will further process the complaints, and they will provide the response back to the accountability focal person. And Nairobi level, we pass it back to the field team, to the field accountability person, and then it will communicate to the complainant. So this was for category 1 to 4, where we have request for assistance, we have request for information, mind the nature of complaints, and some program design complaint. For the category 5 and 6, where we need fast track information, if that thing is any kind of complaint which falls under category 5 or 6 that is reported, accountability focal person will, from field, will straight away pass it to the accountability focal person in Nairobi. It will be just a channel. It will not take processing or something. So he will immediately pass this information to director PDQ maybe, or to the country director. So it will be up to their role, because these serious nature of complaints, they require different set of skills to further investigate. Maybe it is related to law, or maybe it is related to HR. So the CD or the director PDQ, they will further decide that who should be in the investigation committee. So they will form a committee, and committee will investigate the matter, and then provide the finding and recommendation, which will be communicated again to the complainant. Any questions?
Just one question. This is a long shot. What if the complaint is about the AFP, accountability for capacity? What if the complaint is regarding the accountability for capacity?
About the accountability?
Where do they, is there an alternative or a shortcut to a higher person than that?
This is a very good question. First thing is like accountability focal person, they will be closely monitored by their line. And those lines will randomly check these persons, that how these are going. Like if I have a hotline number in field, I might be calling from Nairobi just to check that the person is there, somebody is receiving my complaints or not. So we will ensure that the system is in place, and people or the person who are responsible for this, they are communicating.
Sorry, but Emily's question, I think, was more about the focal point themselves.
Yeah.
If someone in the field has a complaint about him as an individual, how do they, is there a way of getting around it?
Yeah, I think the best way is to, either to complain to, if somebody who from the community wants to complain about the accountability focal person. But I think is accountability focal person is not part of any project or implementation. He or she is the one who is responsible only for monitoring and these kind of things. So it doesn't have that much, kind of.
He has free reign.
Yeah, but your point is quite valid, that there should be some mechanism to complain to this. So area manager of that area, he should take some sort of,
because
random checking or something like this.
Yeah.
Or if the complaint is about the CD, for example.
About the
country director.
Yes.
Do we still ask the accountability focal person? And does that accountability focal person have enough power to take that issue not to the director but to the higher?
I will repeat your question too.
No, they don't have enough power, and in issues like that, that's why we have some sort of a two-level committee. Yeah? We don't really put it like that, but it's really like one lower level committee, that's for 1, 2, 3 categories, and a higher level committee. So, there's program managers, HR people, and others involved in that, so that if issues like that come up, they will kind of know where to go and what to do if it's about the CD. Yeah, but it's not very likely that the community people will actually know the CD and they will say anything about it. For your question, really, well, there you go. That's interesting. If it's about the focal point themselves, it depends on the focal point. In your case, maybe they don't have interaction. In other cases, they will have interaction with the community. It will be a job in addition to their program daily job or something. So it would be nice to let people know, if you have issues about our focal point, you can call directly area manager or something like that. Or there's an appeals process that we need to inform people about. I don't know if you picked it up. It's mentioned in the film. If, when we receive the response, the complainant is not happy with the response, they need to have a way to refuse appeal to us, and we need to agree on what that appeal mechanism is. Generally, it's you can write a call directly to PDQ director or the CD. So you provide an email or a phone number, and you also tell people the number of times they can appeal. How many times are we going to give people the right to appeal to us? Generally, in a lot of kind of legal fora, this is 3 times maximum. We might want to say you can appeal once, we will reconsider it. If you don't like the response, bad luck, or something like that. It's for the team to decide, yeah? Okay. There were a couple of hands, but we've got 10 minutes for the other presentation. So how pressing are they?
Mine's not pressing.
Okay. Yeah?
Can I just say one last comment? For me, I feel like it's a good system, but it's a very policing way of doing things. It's like communities are policing your staff at the community level, and yet the staff in head office level at the national level are not.
This particular system, or a hotline, or particular mechanism, is that what you feel? The whole idea of complaints handling is like policing, you're saying.
Yeah, it's like policing.
How can we make it not so like that, not seen like that?
We just discussed something about embedding it within the community structures, like what we came up with, so that when Save the Children is not there, communities know how to do those kind of complaints and how to mitigate them. Because communities are not tabula rasa, they have ways of dealing with these things as well. And we need to learn and bring that level. For me, I see
I think it is an attitude issue, and I can see that some people and some of our staff do feel threatened by this whole thing, and they will resist against it.
And yet they should not feel threatened, they should feel ownership. So how can you make them own it?
Yeah, so there are examples already in one program where we're listening and we're responding. Staff feel good because it makes a difference in their relationship with the community. So initially we're likely to get that sort of resistance, but as we get into it and as we actually look at learnings and see that we're actually responding and improving, that is good. And I don't know if you want to say anything about
Yeah,
it.
just to add one thing, like when we talk about CRM, I do not like this word because it talks a lot about complaints. When you will be in contact with community, they will tell you, if you are a livelihood person, that your sport has helped my child to recover, to go to school. There are so many things. So it is balanced. So you will not get all the time complaints. People, I mean, sometimes when you say that you have done distribution for 3,000 beneficiaries and all of them were satisfied, or most of them said this blanket was necessary or something, you feel very proud that you are doing something very good. So I think, and secondly, this is some sort of very flexible system. We can change it according to if it is not working, we can make changes. So this is just a start. This is just to begin with a communication with the communities. So I think it is difficult when we start, but it gets better as we work.
Probably when you do a global evaluation of it, you can get to know more.
Yeah, so we will.
How effective.
Yeah. Okay. So the next person, we're not doing program monitoring already, where we don't already have a regular dialogue with communities, where we're not really present and that sort of thing. It's much trickier and riskier to go in there and set up a mechanism, bring it down from the sky. I would like us to see working on strengthening program monitoring and improving our listening before we set up complaints mechanisms. Because it has been our experience and learning where we don't have strong program monitoring, where we're not in touch with the community and picking up issues here and there. If we go in there and set up a complaints mechanism, that mechanism is likely to become the only thing that exists between us and the community. And people go to it for anything and everything. People go to it for information requests, for needs, for asking for everything and complaining and what have you. And they become, all of a sudden, they become overburdened with all of these things. And especially in programs where we're short of staff, where we don't really have, staff to adequately, take those in, enter them, bring them to a discussion and be able to respond, it will do more harm than good. So I want us to start small. I want us to start with improving our monitoring and listening and proactively seeking for feedback. Start with using these forms if necessary. The feedback forms. Start with that. Try to see if the staff will start using it in their activities. Let's see what issues are coming in. Let's see how long it is taking us to respond. And then go from there. And then really try to build something up. So starting small, starting from integrating, seeking feedback in regular monitoring is, I think, where to start. So that's what I wanted to say. It's 5 to 5. Shall we end here and go into some reflection about the day? Or do you want to listen to Catherine's model?
No, it's okay.
I'm asking.
It's now or never for Catherine's model because Catherine's model is so fast. I'm just typing now.
Yes. So it's up to you.
I'd like to hear Catherine's model.
Huh?
I'd like to hear Catherine's model. Something like we might lose it if we leave it till tomorrow. We're sort of all quite involved in the discussion.
Shall we do it? Okay.
Okay. Just to start with, it's Mark's model. I'm presenting for him. I think it might help if I draw it up here and get as far as drawing. So just to give you a quick overview. So Mark is just in the process of finalising design for a cash transfers project in Kenya. And the cash transfers are to encourage people to send their children to school. And they're doing conditional transfers and unconditional transfers. So the conditional is, I think, the children have to be in school 80% of the time or something, and the unconditional is, doesn't matter, just you'll get your money whatever you do. So the problem that they have is they've got a very disparate area, so all the dots are villages. So what they've decided to do, and this is head office, and they're over a really big geographical area. So what they've decided to do is they've put them into clusters, like this, and each of these clusters is going to have a field officer. And they also have a full-time accountability officer. Who's based out of head office. So they're trying quite a unique approach, which I think is quite interesting to hear your feedback on. So they're planning that the field officer will be the person who's channeling all of the complaints, or what the R is, the complaints of people, the response mechanism. But because these areas are so big, they're setting up an accountability committee within each cluster, and that committee is going to be comprised of men, women and adolescents, and one of the women is either going to have to be literate or they'll be a scribe. So they're just trying to consider covering every area to receive community feedback. So the idea is they will be located in a physical location, perhaps once a week, because cash transfer programs, especially unconditional, conditional, especially at the beginning, are quite complicated for the community to understand. So they're envisaging that there are going to be a lot of community requests for information, complaints, etc. So they're saying this accountability committee will not be staffed, but will receive some kind of incentive to have a meeting once a week where any member of the community can come to them and channel requests for information. And then they'll be recording it on pad of paper. And then once a week or once a fortnight, the field officer will meet with the accountability committee, find out what all these requests were, and then, the accountability committee will be trained to do a first level analysis of all of the complaints, feedback they receive. So level 1, level 2, the hope is that the field officer will be able to resolve it on the spot and give the information to the accountability committee to then channel out. But they will still be, they'll come with a tablet, so they'll still be copying the hard copy information onto the tablet. What's a tablet? Like an iPad thing. Oh, very high tech. Seriously? It's a high budget project. You see, they've got a full-time accountability officer. So then the idea is then these people will come back to the accountability officer perhaps once, twice a week, feeding them this information. Once, twice a week? Possibly. It depends on the distance. I think it's all different. Although I think Mark was saying that they'll do it different time frames throughout the project. Like at the beginning of the project, definitely once a week, perhaps twice, but later on maybe going down to once a fortnight. So the idea is that they would go back to the accountability officer and they will have grouped the feedback that's come from the communities by category, and also by, if it's like specific information requests, that will be grouped as well. So then the accountability officer can feed relevant information to the M&E team. And then, and then the rest will go to the, what's it called, the complaints committee. Oh, and sorry, I forgot to say, there's also going to be complaints boxes to resolve this issue.
Why is, I thought the accountability committee is the complaints committee.
No, sorry, these are the community members.
That's
within each
fine,
cluster.
they can be.
Oh no, sorry, so this is for category 3 plus
Yeah.
within the head office. So, yeah, so there'll also be complaints boxes here, which is why there'll be a scribe on the accountability committee who can hopefully be confidential enough that that box of complaints will be taken straight to the accountability officer, so this person isn't involved in that. So I think that's as far as he got. We were thinking because of the huge amount of information, they would probably need a data entry officer as well, putting everything into a database.
So the accountability officer is the one who's doing the categorizing and then channeling.
No, so for anything level 1 and 2, they'll do the categorization here. And if it's a simple thing like what date do we receive the cash transfer, that will be resolved on the spot.
Yeah.
But anything higher, all of that information will still come to the accountability officer so that he can channel it to the M&E team if necessary. But the level 3 plus will then go through what we think would be a process similar to your diagram, but we didn't quite get there yet.
Okay, nice, thanks.
Suppose I'm a beneficiary living in a village.
Yeah.
I'm not satisfied with this election. So do you think I'll be able to communicate to the same community members who didn't select me?
Sorry, I should probably explain as well that they're going to have 2 different committees for the benefit. So they have 2 committees in each cluster. So one will be the benefit election committee, and that will be made up of people like village leaders, religious leaders, whoever. And then these people will be lower down in the community, so perhaps teachers, a good kind of selection, but not the powerhouse who always gets elected to these community committees. So what happens with the beneficiary selection is that this other committee, I'm afraid I can't remember what they're called, will do the beneficiary selection, and then all of that criteria will be completely transparent, and then the list of beneficiaries will be displayed in the village. So if you're a beneficiary and you have a complaint about not being selected, that can probably, or hopefully, be resolved here, because they can say you weren't selected for this, this, and this reason.
Okay. Do I have any other mechanism? I don't want to give a complaint to any person living in my village who knows me. What is the other mechanism? This complaint box?
Yeah.
Okay.
But the problem is, if you're illiterate, then you still have to go to the scribe here. I mean, maybe you can find a different scribe.
Yeah, the only thing that I want to say, the point I want to say is that we should keep in mind that there might be some beneficiary who want to keep their identity confidential and they just want to communicate their complaint to someone who is not related to this focal point or someone who is directly involved in this program. This is what I want to say.
I think that's why
there's the boxes.
Through the boxes.
Yeah, and if they're illiterate, they can ask somebody in their family to write for them. They don't necessarily always have to go to the committee. Yeah.
I think the one issue that we had, other than going further down the chain, was the wealth of information that you're going to be receiving, at least at the start of the project, and how do you categorize that so that this person doesn't become a bottleneck in the process.
Yeah, and also, in terms of the timeliness, because of the geographical spread and access issues and things like that, that would be probably one of the issues as to how soon the accountability officer can refer things to the committee and how soon can they meet, how often, and then, how can that response be delivered back. It's very interesting. I'll be very interested in kind of documenting and following out the process with you. Yeah?
I have a question or suggestion on a practical level. If they're using iPads, can they not do data entry through those that will go to a central database? So it's a high budget project, so they shouldn't have funds to set up some sort of...
I think the internet's connectivity.
Okay, but even if you do it on an electronic copy, and then when you get to there,
it's just a copy and paste rather than entering everything.
Rather than having to then...
Yeah.
I think that's the
Yeah, I have. Yeah, please. Yeah, please. Yeah. One is like this technical question about the database design. Once a data is entered and recorded and submitted, so the person at the field cannot delete or edit it.
Yeah. I think that's why we were thinking, I didn't put the name, but why we need an actual dedicated database officer, and that person would be responsible for that database and making sure that it was confidential and all of that.
Right. Yeah. Okay.
My point was just going to be that it would be interesting if the accountability committees were quite proactive in trying to get feedback from people rather than just sort of sitting in the, at a certain place every time every week. And specifically, I was thinking about the idea of going to an accountability committee for a child and whether that seems like, complaints boxes and accountability committees, they seem quite scary for a child. And I understand that there are adolescents in the committee, probably for exactly that reason. So perhaps there's the opportunity for the adolescents to have, to break away from the adults and run a session with the other children or something like that to encourage more children to give feedback.
I think the fact that what we were thinking of, we were thinking of the nice video in the camp, that there's like a nice solid place where all the community know where it is and they can just sit there, it's nice and sunny. But in reality, what do you do during monsoon season? What do you do if one of the committee has to work and can't make it? I mean, these are 3 different villages. How do they mobilise themselves? But I think those are things that kind of get sorted out once you go further down the design. But it's a really cool.
Yeah, but I think maybe once a week or so might prove to be quite challenging. But of course, you have to start trying and see if it works, and then kind of open up the time frame a little bit, lengthen the time frame a little bit more in time as things get settled down. Yeah. Well, thank you very much. Thanks. All right, last comment.
Confirming the head office, whether it is here or the country office, the head office.
Oh, sorry, I'm new to say, but I'm not sure with the titles, but I mean the country office. It's not coming to the UK and going.
Yeah. Okay. Great. Thanks very much. Thank you, everybody. 5:07. Very good. This is again. Thank you for your participation, your engagement, your patience with us today, and do a little reflection exercise on the day. I'm interested in knowing what the key learnings are, so I'll do a little kind of flip chart on that where you can put your key learnings. Becca will facilitate an age assessment on next to that. Is that all right?
Yeah, maybe we can combine them if you want and use that a learning section in age assessment.
Can we? That's good. You've got your thing there.
We can do it separately if you want.
Yeah, I wasn't sure if that's
country colleagues' experiences and what your current plans are, and also gaining a better awareness of the practical tools that are available for us to use. And the key thing that I think I learned was that the recommended approach is to start small and strengthen the systems and practices that are currently in place. And I think that sounds like an effective way of implementing our learning rather than trying to take everything we've learned here and radically change something overnight. And what I said I didn't like was that it was a bit cold in here in the morning.
Really?
And that I couldn't find a cup when I first came in.
Aww.
But that's nothing major.
Yeah, no, but please do say when you're cold. Yeah.
There's a temperature thing right there, so I've been trying to vary it. Yeah.
Oh, thanks, Georgina.
Okay.
All right, see you
No.
tomorrow. Yeah, but who would like to share?
Could I quickly interject? Sorry, I've just spoken to them. We can leave stuff in here, papers, but we were supposed to be out at 5, and I'm sorry I didn't realise. I thought we had till 5:30. So they're wanting to clear the catering stuff, and we were told that we should try and hurry up to be out.
Okay.
So just we need to wrap up fairly.
Okay, yeah.
That's
No,
all right.
I mean, it's just the small group here. So,
Yeah.
Gloria, do you want to share?
Yes, what I liked was the practical and learning of the ways and mechanisms for country program. And I enjoyed the participatory approach that you used. And I didn't like the cold as well. The room was cold.
Really?
I was freezing.
Oh my goodness.
Light was cold, I thought I would warm up.
Yeah.
So
Sorry about that. Well, we should, if you're cold, just say it, everybody. Just say it then. I'm cold, let's put the temperature up.
It
Yes.
started getting very stuffy this morning actually, which is why I turned it down a little bit, but to just say tomorrow, that's...
Yeah. Tick. Yeah, separately for children and adults, according to your whatever project you chose to assess or your overall impression of how much we involve people. Please. You can use your pen